Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Christoph Fournier, John Travolta, JMails24, my anonymous donor, Unimento, M, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Gilded and G+, so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
You there, Nathan?
Yes?
Okay. I didn't hear a peep.
Yeah, I'm just meddling. I could hear a clunking sound, literally clonk, 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 coming from inside my PC. I was like, what the hell's that? So
Oh boy.
Just taking the glass off to have a look inside. It might be coming from outside the hair. I've got the window open. Maybe it was just weird sound bouncing in through the window. I don't know. Anyway.
Did you do any overclocking or touch it since yesterday?
No. No. First day ever.
No problem.
Not since after the show yesterday, no. But I tested it. I went back on. I did a members only live stream and stress tested the memory for about half an hour in Intel XDU. Now, every time I make a change now, it's not like some massive learning curve. I've got to learn how to use the PC and what it does and how the motherboard or operating system or BIOS works. I don't have to learn that anymore. I know where to go and where to find things and how to adjust them quickly. So when you first get something like this, you've got a steep learning curve and every little adjustment takes an eternity, but it's just sort of, you rapidly learn how it all works. And now if there's an issue, I'll be like, oh, I know what to do next. I'll fiddle with that and that'll fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's
it took me about a year. It took me about a year with the last PC to get it to the point where I was moderately dissatisfied with it because it made noise.
It got tired. It got really tired. That old one.
No. I mean, when I first got it, it took me about a year to do what I'm doing with this one, and I've done this one in about a month.
No, I got you. Well, you're living off past experience. So, but I'm saying your computer, the old one, got tired with all the stuff you were asking it to do. It didn't have enough power or RAM or whatever.
Well, I spilled coffee on it, and then because it had been annoying me for so long, I started watching techie PC videos. And one of the things they talked about was lapping, which is where you basically sand down the top of the CPU to make the integrated heat spreader a bit thinner, which means it can dissipate the heat quicker and you can lower the temperatures. I was like, if I can lower the temperatures on this PC, it might stop annoying me. And at that point, it was running beautifully. It just had a new graphics card and it was actually running really well. And I was like, yeah, but it's still making noise, which irritates me. So I called the PC guy. I'm like, oh, my PC is working fine. I just want you to lap the CPU. Can you do that? Is that something you'd do for me? Because I know the guy reasonably well. And he was like, no. I was like, okay. And then I can't remember what reason I actually took it into him. There was a specific reason I took it in. I can't remember. But it wasn't for an actual specific issue as such, as far as I can remember. But I took it into him, and in the process of him, that was it. He just gave it a once over. He was like, I'll service it for you. I'll take it to pieces, clean it all out, you know, make sure it's all wired up correctly, check it over, and then put it back together again. I was like, okay, that sounds reasonable. So it was a service on a fully working, perfectly functional PC. But when he pulled it apart, it had coffee spilt on it or something spilt on it that I was unaware of. And he was like, look, the RAM's died. Upon pulling it out, it must have been like cemented together with coffee, and now it's just dead. So he had to replace it with what he could cobble together from DDR3 memory. And it just wasn't as much memory. So suddenly it started to be crap, not working properly. And the more time progressed, the more it seemed to be getting, either I was just getting more and more irritated, or it was getting slower and slower.
When the coffee ruined the RAM, well, why not just replace with a new RAM rather than try to...
Because it also took out a couple of the lanes. So,
so
it also needed a new motherboard.
A new motherboard was the key. I remember getting a laptop for, I think, my wife at one time. It was a PC laptop, and the doggone thing was burning your lap when you had it. And we ended up buying one of those extra little separator with a fan in it. So you put the laptop on the fan, but then you had to plug that in to the USB port of the laptop, and it was making noise, but it was keeping it cooler. So obviously you don't want the noise, but yeah, to design a computer that doesn't get really hot, it must be a difficult task.
Well, it's an impossible task. It will always generate heat. It's got power going into it. So there's always going to be a certain amount of inefficiency that's going to be lost through heat. They're never going to get it 100% efficient. So there's always going to be heat to deal with, even if it's a lesser amount in time. But that's not really what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm asking a case that's been designed to run a very modest system without any noise, to run the absolute pinnacle of equipment that pulls huge numbers of wattage. I was testing it yesterday, and the CPU got up to 470 watts. This is one chip. I was horrified. I had to do the test again to see if it was actually doing it. But I've set it to unlimited. So if it needs to pull 470 watts, I think it was higher than that. I should have written it down, but it was bloody high. I was like, I was lost for words when I saw it. But if that's what it's got to pull, fair enough. It's only doing it for a second. And that's
so you mean like a peak power? Like
the peak power draw was like bordering on 500 watts. Now I kind of in the back of my mind knew it could do that, but you just don't expect to see it on your own system, especially when you're kind of undervolting it and trying to get it to produce less heat, and that all involves putting less power in. So when you see it pulling those sorts of numbers, you're like, whoa, that's a big number. You know, it's got a 750 watt power supply. So if the GPU was also tuned up, that could easily pull 300. It's not. I've tuned that down too. But you think, okay, you don't have to be a genius with numbers to go, wow, you're really getting close to what the power supply can do. But it's a good power supply. So you're like, well, it should be able to do that, especially if it's only a transient, you know, it's just not long. It should be able to do in excess of what it's rated at for a very short period. And if it's good caps, they should be fine. So I don't know what I'm worried about. Probably got nothing to worry about with it. It's been built by someone else. I didn't pick the components, so you kind of stress about and second guess them because you didn't put them in there and you didn't research them. But there we go.
I may get the terms wrong, but I remember watching a video where they were trying to transfer the heat that a computer generates to be used in another fashion. I can't remember. So that it wasn't just heating and making it tough for the computer to work, but it was a transfer concept for it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's called a heat exchanger.
Right, but it was going to do something else. It wasn't just going to dissipate.
Yeah, Linus Tech Tips has just done this. So he's got a massive server room in his house, and he's building the house. So he's like, well, what I want to do is I want to run the piping from the water cooling system that runs through all of these different electronics, be it GPU, CPUs, whatever, and run that to the bottom of the pool. So run the pipes to underneath the tiles where they've been cemented into the ground, and have the loop dissipate its heat into the pool in the garden. So that's how it's not going to be heating the pool, but it's dissipating its heat I mean, in a literal term, it is. It's heating the pool. There's no other way to describe it. That's how it's shedding its heat into the water. Therefore, the water's going to rise in temperature by an absolutely minuscule amount. But, you know.
Well, yeah. Well, they do that in geothermal. Is it geothermal? It's too early in the morning here. But when you live in cold climates and you want a greenhouse, they'll go dig a trench, say 2 feet wide, 12 feet down, because it gets minus 40, like in Nebraska. And they'll lay these hollow plastic tubing pipes, like drain pipes, in a snake-like manner at the very bottom of that trench, and then they'll fill it up. Well, one end sticks out of the ground with a cover on it, so no animal can get into it, and that's the cold air intake, and it goes through to the ground to the 12-foot sub section of the ground, and it zigzags all the way, and the other end comes out at the greenhouse. So the cold air comes in, but by the time it gets to the greenhouse, it's the temperature of whatever it is, 12 feet under the ground, which is like 65 degrees instead of negative 40.
Right.
It's really cool. The guy was growing a citrus tree, in Nebraska at negative 40.
Very cool.
It's awesome.
But this PC acts as a heater. It's in a position next to a radiator for a reason. When I decided where I was going to put it, I was like, it's going to chuck out a lot of heat, and why not put it by the radiator? That's where the heat in this room gets produced from. Why not put it next to it? Not in such a way that the heater heats the PC, obviously.
No, I get it. Yeah, it's just got to be that's a clever thing to do, though.
Yeah, it's nice in winter, sat here. PC's normally chucking out an absolute ton of heat. And it doesn't behave that
really
dissimilar to the old PC, because I tuned it the same, and the principles I'd applied were the same as the principles that this manufacturer has employed to make this case. That's exactly what I did with the old PC.
Yeah, indeed. So I'm settling in here in Idaho, and thankful I passed my driver's and motorcycle test yesterday. So that's out of the way.
You have to take a new test in a different state.
Yeah, because you got to get a new state ID, and the ID was California before, so now it's going to be Idaho driver's license.
I see.
Yeah, and so once you pass the test, then you just go in every 4 years to do an eye exam and pay a fee. You don't have to keep taking the test again. So that's it, and then I'm going to head back next week, or at the end of this week, tomorrow night actually, back to California for one last trip, and then that's with just my one vehicle. So I'll catch you on the road during the week, next week.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying where the questions are going in the housekeeping, and I think people who, and I've seen this somewhere, I don't know where, but they're saying the show is stale, or I don't consider the show stale when we are using every show to remind people of the housekeeping questions that give the base support, so to speak, to the whole show and to the whole topic matter in general. And since no one, since the advent of those questions, has successfully debunked them, we say, hey, you know what? This is a good way to start the show. So the 8, I can't remember if it's 8 or more now, but the housekeeping questions, even if they grow in number, are so refined and get a listener to think that if it's the same listener like me, I'm happy, and it gets even more grounded into my memory. If it's a new listener, they're saying, wow, that's a good question. So who in the world is complaining that's in between those two parties?
It's because there was a short break. I had a holiday about a week ago. That's all it is. But on the other hand, there's two parts to the show, isn't there? There's the general momentum being kept up in terms of keeping the information out there, and there's going to be a certain percentage of people that it's fresh to. But the people who aren't fresh to it, they want the other aspect of the show, which is the completely reactive to somebody coming in going, you idiots, obviously it's a globe. Now, through no fault of our own, we are censored to the point where we don't get enough new people coming into the Gilded server. Plus, Gilded's unfamiliar to most people, which might not be helping, I don't know. But in either event, the fact that the old dogs don't come in because they can't be asked to join Gilded doesn't fuss me in the slightest. There's been changes, so those things take time to readjust and settle out. And there's going to be lulls in the show when there's less aspects of the reactive, basically defeating fundies on the fly, live. That's what people want to see. The people who've come here and they've gone, yeah, I know you need a flat earth to get an angle. Yeah, I know Biruni measured the mountain flat. Yeah, I know that everything's built on a flat surface. Now I want to see you pummel the living crap out of this guy because I get stick from people all day long about flat earth, and it's a bit of a relief to watch you beating them around with their own nonsense. So can you get on with that, please? Because I've heard housekeeping before. You go, yeah, I've read this comment before.
Well, I could respond to that comment. Yeah. I want to hear more housekeeping. Yeah. I want the role play in FED, educational format. And yeah, I go out to the public and use it. And yeah, I'm going to report back how well it worked, not you do it for me. You see, this is like the huddle for us who are active. Now, I'm active not because I go looking for it, but I'm ready for it. If it comes up, if someone says that golf ball went in the hole because of gravity, you know what's going to come out of my mouth is several things. I could be very basic and say, well, what's that? Or I could say, Einstein destroyed your theory 107 years ago. That ball went there because of the bending of space-time. And then they're going to be like, what the heck?
There's a couple of other aspects that those people who are keen to see the fight, keen to see the ballers come in and get annihilated, there's other stuff that's going on within the housekeeping that they're moaning about that they're just not paying attention to, if you ask me. They're not seeing bigger sparks fly off the blade than usual. Now, those two big sparks that are flying off the blade, by analogy, are first and foremost something that progresses the housekeeping, and that's John's question, which is currently undergoing refinement as it gets asked on an almost daily basis. So that question about why are we applying a transformative equation to a sphere if it's a sphere? And then we all tend to slip into a few good men references. But that is something that's being developed. Yeah? Typically, you see the shiny blade and you want to see it not just being sharpened, you want to see it taking someone's head off. I get it. So, still got to spend a lot more time at the sanding wheel than you do chopping heads off. That's just how it is.
Yeah,
and
see,
I've got one. There's two sparks I was going to describe.
Go on. Sorry.
The second spark is an internal battle that most people just don't like. Turns them off. Now, I know why my numbers have currently dipped. Well, not to mention I've had a holiday, which doesn't help, but it's because people are turned off by this aspect of what we do. So we are addressing ether. We're addressing con artists, hippies that are selling you free energy and other kinds of crap, reversing polarities of down, all sorts of other voodoo nonsense. We're having to address it internally. And after watching quite a few videos about mentality of purchasing, I won't bring it back to computers, although that was what it was about. The guy's just talking about his customers. He's more talking psychology than computing, this particular guy's channel's called Frame Chasers. It's a bit crude, but check him out if you want to get an idea of what I'm talking about. And he's talking about your general mentality of how people should, in his advice, behave. And he compares it to bodybuilding. He's like, you get loads of crap on forums, loads of crap on Reddit. It's all useless information. Everyone's contradicting everyone else. What you got to do is you've got to find a couple of good people that you think are going to offer you good results because you've followed their advice and it's worked. And then just stick to them. Just accept that they are going to be a trustworthy source. And only go to them. And when he said it, I was like, so they've built up good faith. Okay. And that's your advice. Find someone to put your faith in and put your faith in them. Right? That was his advice. Now, we are challenging people that people have put their good faith in. And they're even being told, exercise that good faith you put in us. Right. That's what we're up against. It's a big turn-off.
I
Nobody
put my
wants
good
this.
faith that I would get a link today, and I didn't.
Thank you, Neil.
Yeah, you did.
Excellent. It's not like I'm in the middle of a really important point or anything.
Yeah, let me respond to you. The show is changing, and for the good. It's an educational show for me, at least the way I look at it. I learned so many things here that aren't taught anywhere else. And then to have the panel go back and forth, we definitely don't all agree, but it refines it. And I may have to give up a couple of things because I gained 5 new things I wasn't thinking about. But none of it was detrimental to the main flow of the argument, let's say, because we're not that far off in the sense of being diametrically opposed to what someone is saying. But when something is diametrically opposed to reality, that's when this show shines the best. So to your first question of that first spark, if you're a listener to the show and you take notes, which I recommend, you can always refer back to those notes, and then you are capable and ready to be what you want the show to be. Like when this happens, it happens to me live in public. I take the show live. I use your words. I use Adam's words. I use Huey's words. I use Brian's Logic's words with other people. I'm actually using it and refining it and seeing what people say to it. And there's my interaction with the public. If you're just listening to the show and you're sitting on your cushy chair and you want Nathan to battle Baltards, that's just a lazy man's approach. You're never going to get the fullness of the show.
But there's also the other end of that stick.
That's the entertainment part.
I just don't want you to discourage people, because there's always going to be some cider out of these rotten apples, right? And that is to say that, okay, yeah, no worries. Well, you can proactively do something about that. You want me smashing at ballers. You want the panel all over their nonsense. Okay, right. You've got to share the show. You can't just be that guy, I don't know, you're out there, that sees the pummeling and then shares the show. There's a pummeling. I want to share this. No.
No.
You have to. I'm nearly done. You have to share the show so that as I say in every intro, you expand the live audience, because then you're going to get that guy who wasn't necessarily watching the show that watches us calm, because you've shared the show with him when we're just doing a housekeeping show, if you want to call it that. And you share it with that guy, and he watches and goes, they're very calm, they're very reasonable, which we're not when you spout nonsense. Let's be reasonably honest about what we are and are not when people talk crap. But they don't know that when they come and see the show in the format that you're saying you don't like. Well, you've got to still share it. That's what expands the live audience. And then we get the fundies because they can't help themselves.
Well, I think you've misunderstood what I was saying, because I wasn't able to finish either. But the point is this. It's not that they don't like the show because it's the format there it is. They like the format because they're learning. But when you don't use what you're learning, that's where I meant you're sitting on the couch. You're like the Dead Sea. There's water's coming in, but nothing's going out. It's going to stink up after a while. And so you're saying, this isn't, I know all these arguments. I've been a fan of the show, and the ballers aren't coming, and there's no more sparks flying. And yeah, but let some water out. Go create your own sparks, and you'll be able to come in and say, you know what? I used all those arguments you guys used, and it was glorious. It was this, it was that. Okay, that's what I was referencing there. The second part, the second spark, I think that's the direction we're headed to. And I don't mind that, because correcting the nonsense after you realize the nonsense that is being taught in school since the first time you saw that ball. So do flat earthers have nonsense? Yeah. Do Christians have nonsense? Yeah. Do anybody of anything in the large group of them, some of them stray from the fundamentals? Yeah. Okay, so what does the show do? Okay, you got an idea, present it. Okay, so they come here with ether. They say, yeah, no problem. Heard about it, talked about it, it's been around for a long time. What is it? How do you prove it? Oh, well, don't ask us that question. And then all of a sudden we have the sparks flying there. It's like, wait a minute, we have to ask these questions. We have to know how you know. And if you can't describe how you know, then at least we'll agree with you it's a belief, and that's okay if it's a belief. But
Yeah, but
well, the whole point is there's categories. Like I have ideas that I could say about things, like golf, for example. I know golf inside and out. I still don't have the swing that the pros have. Okay, it's like, how come I know it inside and out but don't have their swing? Well, I got to work on it. Okay, so the whole point is there's so many things about golf and so many ways of doing something in golf with one club that it's amazing how many options you have. So then people form, well, this is the way I do it. Well, let's see it. It works for you. Let me try it. Well, that doesn't work for me. And so the whole point is when flat earthers come in with concepts that are now rooted in true demonstrable fashion and say, this is what it is. We say, well, yeah, we don't mind carrying that flag, but show us how you got there. And so I think us being a filter for any new ideas is not a bad place to be. Because we're hard on ourselves. We're hard on ourselves, aren't we?
No, what you mean not bad place to be?
I agree,
this is
but
the
they
best
don't
place
like
to
when
be.
you
We're on the
teach
absolute cutting edge.
They don't like when you correct them.
I'm not
Two
worried
kinds of
about
people don't like it. Let me
I
just
don't-
finish. Christians don't like it, and flat earthers don't like it. I find that funny.
No, it doesn't matter if they like it or not. We're not their enemy by pointing out that they have a belief or it's not something that can go through the scientific method or work on it a little longer and present it in a better fashion. We're not mean people here. We're just.
I agree.
Well, let me finish. We have a high standard for reality. Why? As Adam Meakin has said, you fooled me once, you ain't going to fool me again. I'm going to test everything that comes out of your mouth. I agree with that.
Hey everyone.
Hi, Brian.
Goodbye.
How are things? Flat earthers need to ask themselves a question. Why are they flat earthers? Are they flat earthers because it's rebellious and now it's kind of becoming a fad? Are they flat earthers because they like drama and they want to have drama and have a reputation for being involved in intellectual drama online? You know, or are they there because they want things to be, they want the truth, and they want to be able to educate the world about the truth of what it is. You know, that's the difference. A lot of people are flat earthers for the wrong reason.
Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Righteous Force, 10th Man, the Adam Meakin, Brian's Logic, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Gilded. So welcome, one and all. And Arwin, who's joining.
Good morning,
Hello.
everybody.
At a reasonable time.
Afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Morning, guys.
Yeah.
Good to have you all. We're going to see.
Hello, hello.
Hello. let's keep it, no offence to Baldwin today, but we're going to try and keep housekeeping concise, so we'll get through it in a reasonable amount of time. So, everyone ready?
Fire away.
Ready.
Yes.
Any evidence of a physical
No.
Let's try that one more time without Neil immediately ruining it. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge that's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
Yes, mathematically
No.
it exists.
No, we need it physical. It needs to block the bottoms of buildings and boats, not a math equation. It won't block it.
Right.
It does
Math is
block
not
buildings
evidence.
and boats. It just doesn't block it optically.
What did you not
Okay,
hear?
thank you.
No Baldwin today? Are you deaf or what?
It's
I'm
like,
hurrying it up.
it's like dangling
They
a carrot
traded
in
in
front
the
of him, isn't it?
geometric horizon for a refracted one.
Sorry, say that again, whoever that was, Creation Bear.
They traded in their geometric horizon for a refracted horizon.
No,
Yeah,
but it's
but-
still a geometric horizon. It's just being refracted optically, right? Because that's the field of where refraction does things. But geometrically, it's still blocking things. Optically, it just isn't.
You're gonna
Well,
get
then
blocked.
that's not
Let's just
evidence.
negate all of our double speak. Okay.
Hey
What we're
Nathan,
talking
maybe
about
it was
is-
like that Audi you had for a little while. They just leased the geometric horizon. They had to give it back.
There was never a geometric horizon till he saw otherwise, because the geometric horizon would be a hill that gets in the way of the boat or building. The assertion is a geometric assertion. The mathematics are the geometry of the hill that gets in the way. When saying, no, it's a refracted hill. Okay. Hills don't move beyond the position they were formerly in front of. In other words, if there's a hill in the way of your view, you won't wake up the following day and find that the hill's behind the thing it was formerly blocking. Now, since 1st January 2020, we exposed that the horizon is not a geometric physical blockage to things in the distance as asserted in the maths. Now, the response to that is that it's only refraction. Well, if it's refracted, it is not physically blocking your view like a hill would. And that's the claim. So the anti-flat earth response of refraction doesn't help the globe earth claim that there's a hill in the way of boats and buildings.
It is physically blocking it, though, just not optically.
If it's physically blocking it, then things would be in the way and they wouldn't be behind them and a different day, would they, Arwin? Black Swan.
Well, if you would see things where they really are, yes. But you don't. Because of terrestrial refraction.
Okay, so we've now disseminated this into you can't trust your own eyes. Yeah, okay. If there's a hill blocking my view of something, it's never going to be the case, ever, in any circumstances, that the thing behind the hill is in front of the hill. That's what the Black Swan shows. Therefore, the horizon's not a hill in the way.
Seven
Both of
over
those.
six.
Yeah, hold on, but the horizon, even geometrically, is arbitrary once the optics start shifting, right? So
No,
yeah,
seven-
you would
No.
expect the
Let's
geometric
just address
horizon
that
to be
so we can get to
in
John.
front
No.
of the
Let's
visual
just...
horizon.
He's not going to stop.
No, he's
No.
not going to stop. Ban him. Ban him.
No, 7 over 6r is not refraction. 7 over 6 of a radius is not refraction. It's a physical change in the size of the globe, not refraction of light. It doesn't involve air or pressure, air pressure or temperature over a distance. It's a physical change, a mathematical physical change in the size of the globe's radius, expanding out the globe's size.
Thank you.
Right. Well,
And it
that's,
takes
we
place.
got the radius slightly
Arwin,
wrong.
can
I
you just
mean,
stop now? You're just deliberately pissing me off. I've asked to be concise. Other people now want to talk because you've expanded it out in spite of me asking it to be remaining concise. But you're now rumpusing people. You've done it to Brian, you've done it to John, you've done it to 10th. Can you just let other people get in, as fun as you might find this?
Yeah, I was going to say the geometric horizon and the refracted horizon that they talk about, they both exist below surface level, so we don't really have to worry about those.
Oh dear.
Well, they actually have to expand out, like they call it 7 over 6 of a radius. They call it 7 over 6r, and they gave it the term standard refraction. It's like, what a really sneaky little low-life term. Oh, it's just standard refraction. People go, it's just everyday, refraction of light. No, it's not. They expand out the radius so much so that it always has to appear flat, regardless of how far away the horizon is. So it has to appear flat to you for it to be a globe. That's the way they've worked it, because they have to physically change the size of their globe. Now, none of that works with latitudes or Polaris or how they actually originally calculated the radius, but they still have to do that. That's how ridiculous it is.
Bunch of sneaky bastards, right, Brian?
Well, it's pretty sneaky calling it standard refraction. That was a good one.
Well, you got a lot of problems there because they cite Al-Biruni going to the top of the mountain after he measured the Earth flat using the mountain first, and a flat baseline. And then from the mountain, he has a depression angle to the horizon and did a little math and says the Earth is this, and there's our 3959. But according to Baldwin, it moves. One day it's this, another day could be that. So all of their figures that are based on the Earth with a radius of 3959, and Christian Huygens and Kepler and all these guys who make up all their astronomical distances and equations is based on 3959. But if Al-Biruni would go up on that mountain a day later, or maybe even 2 hours later, and the weather changes, now the Earth is bigger. In fact, the black swan makes the radius go all the way to the moon. So we can tell the whole thing is fake.
Well, Al-Biruni could never have gotten a radius that matched 3959, because 7/6 of it, or what they call standard refraction, is a constant. It always has to be at least 7/6R.
Agreed.
And more. It's
no,
even been called, one second, just let me finish. It's even be called infinite over 6R by Rivet.
After telling him off, I've now got no choice but to reintroduce him thanks to Brian. So that's called the Arwinian paradox.
What's the other term for standard refraction? Think about it.
Terrestrial.
Terrestrial refraction. What is the terrestrial? What's that?
Earth. Terra is Earth.
Yeah. Would it be physical? Earth?
Earth is physical. Terra or terrestrial refraction is not. It's 7/6 of the radius in standard form, otherwise known as standard refraction. They're the same thing.
Yeah, but you're missing the term terrestrial refraction. What does that actually mean?
It means Earth refraction, but it isn't. It's just 7/6 of the radius value stretched out in a model that doesn't exist in reality.
Terra firma.
Yeah, it's a sneaky trick.
The size of terra firma.
Yeah, you're saying it's a sneaky trick because they're calling it Earth refraction. That's its title.
Yeah,
it's like
but it is an expansion, or it is a physical expansion, mathematically a physical expansion of their globe. So terrestrial refraction is an oxymoron, because it's not refraction.
Well, it's like spherical refraction, like sphere-Earth refraction. Basically.
I say let them have it, because
No. Hold on. Just don't whistle past this point. Yeah, what we call the paradox is the full do-si-do circle taken in its logical consistency of the black swan, rebuttal of refraction, and then that leading to the inability to derive an R value from a refracted horizon, right? That's the Arwinian paradox. But what you're saying is something slightly different. You're saying just terrestrial refraction, just to say those words, is an oxymoron. Forget getting to the paradox, just cut it off at the legs. You can't say Earth refraction when you're talking about you're bending a radius at 7/6 of that radius value. That's a stretching out of the ground and nothing to do with quote-unquote refraction. Therefore, Earth refraction, what? You're talking about the light deviating from straight through different mediums. If you're talking about Snell's law and actual refraction, how has Earth got anything to do with it? You know, you're not looking through the Earth. So it's an oxymoron. That's Brian's point. So rather than letting them get all the way through the black swan after asserting that you've got a hill in the way, and then pointing out that it's beyond where the hill would be, in fact, as 10th points out, it goes all the way to the moon if you calculate where that horizon's situated, right? Why let them get there? What's that you say, refraction? No, that's an oxymoron. When you strap on the word terrestrial.
Yeah, so you can't stretch the Earth.
But all of this that we're talking about takes place below surface level anyway, right?
Correct.
Well, no, because terrestrial refraction.
In the maths, that's correct.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in the maths is correct, but terrestrial refraction is claimed to be what we see, which is an expansion of the globe.
Not in the math or the model.
No, hold on. Let me
It's
just
not
rephrase what
clinically
Brian's
proven.
saying, because he's right. He's just phrased it wrong. It's an expansion of the spherical dingleberry below the surface level in the maths. That's what Brian's saying. The circle that is represented in the maths that's called globe, with a tangent point horizon, formerly Earth curve, blocking it in geometric terms, that gets bigger when you apply 7/6R, which they call terrestrial refraction. But what John's response is, so he's saying they blow up the dingleberry a little bit below the line that comes out from your eye line and the line that is the surface level, that the dip of the globe Earth model horizon that we don't see because it only exists in the maths is below surface level.
Yeah, so even if you give them refraction, it's still taking place below surface level. And what is the horizon if not where the sky meets the surface?
Yeah, we've only got one horizon, and the horizon in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator isn't marked out at surface level. It's marked with an X and labelled horizon as the bulge/hill that gets in the way. On screen now would be that tangent point. That's what's blocking your view of the boat in this diagram. That's an Earth curve maths. And what Brian's saying is the circle that's drawn, that you have the boat, or in this case, the circle that is Simon Dan's head, that gets bigger. But the tangent line, albeit with them in this diagram twisting it around from the top point, which is where they normally depict it, well, if they had it gravity inclusive and you at the top point, relatively speaking, to the rest of the sphere dingleberry below you, you've got two lines. One is the eye line, your line of sight, which is parallel to the surface level, also depicted and labelled in the maths. It has to be. These are derived from angles, tangent points, all relating to that surface level. So you can't not have it. The globe Earth requires the flat Earth. The irony's delicious.
If you go back to
There it
that, if you just go back, Nathan, to that diagram where you had the ship there with the guy looking at the ship.
I can't.
Can you do that?
I can't.
All right.
I can, but it's in a
Alright, that doesn't
2-hour
matter.
slideshow. I mean, I can have a go. No,
Yeah.
I didn't do
See
too
the way,
bad.
see the way it's straight. See the way it flattens out. See the way the ship flattens out behind it, the red part.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like another little admission. A little admission that that's what we see, but they have this little bulge in between the person and the ship. It's a load of nonsense.
I never noticed that.
It's may I please? It's surplus to requirement.
Yeah, the dingleberry with 7/6 inflation or otherwise is surplus to requirements because all the angles are going to come from surface level. Surface level may give you a derivation with a dingleberry that might or might not expand with 7/6R. Surface level, where it's at though, that's what you're using. Why? Well, because the surface level's the surface level. And it's flat. And it's got sod all to do with the dingleberry dangling beneath in a globe Earth mathematics that asserts that the horizon's below the surface level. We've only got one horizon. We certainly don't have a horizon below surface level.
There's another.
So what?
There's
Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's all right. There's another point here that John's point and Brian's point meet up at. So according to their version, the higher you go in the mountain, then you're going to be able to see stars that you couldn't have seen if you were at sea level. Really now. So Brian showed us that, and it was he labored in this presentation and he did a good job. He shows that the aviator with the navigator with the bubble sextant 5 miles up has the exact same star, same measurements as the guy on the boat at sea level. Interesting. I thought you were going to see more stars.
Did you want to
Yep.
say something specific about this one, Brian? I've paused it on it.
No, well, I do have something to say about that, but this is actually nonsense when they show this bending light thing from the person's eye. That's not terrestrial refraction.
No,
It's
correct.
not. It's not. That's also false. It's like a double bait and switch they do, whereas they switch from what is refraction to trying to claim to this bending light thing that they're trying to claim is refraction after they've talked about actual refraction, Snell's law, etc. Then they switch to this, but that's a double bluff because the reality of their model is not this either. It's that Simon Dan's head would just the right side of his head that we can see there would just flatten out.
So it's a double con.
It's a double con, yeah, a double con.
Well, that's where
you
it falls apart, isn't it? The web of deceit normally, as it expands, becomes more flimsy. And in this case, we've got the expansion of the assertion in the first instance of heliocentrism, derived from elevation angle measurements to Polaris, giving you equators and giving you hard and fast globe Earth geometry with hills getting in the way. Then at some point, there's the necessity for them to flatten out the land a bit, which can only imply that people were looking a bit further. So I don't know when the introduction of terrestrial refraction came about and became prevalent in the heliocentric worldview, but that just seems like a gaping chasm opening up from what was originally just a crack. Oh, the globe mathematics in their geometric assertions don't actually match what we see? We've got to do something about this. Let's add in another layer of bullshit. But the bullshit's just been pulled apart now by us in the mathematics.
Well, they were never able to account for the technological optional curve for the general public, for us to have relatively cheap cameras that can look incredibly far away with a lot of detail, right? They never really accounted for all that, just like NASA technically didn't really account for, well, that the public would eventually just figure out that the moon landing was fake and that the low quality was not going to be able to mask it forever, right?
Well,
it's a similar situation.
No, good point, Arwen, but it's a little bit even more detailed when Andrew Thomas Young, a subject matter expert on refraction, says all of his refraction calculations were done on a flat plane. Well, if you're doing all your refraction calculations on a flat plane, how could you say anything otherwise? Oh, but then he adds this caveat. But we know the Earth isn't flat, exclamation point. So now he goes into this belief of a dingleberry, takes what he did off of a flat plane and says, by adding geometric considerations, we could bend that baby and we can make it fit a sphere model. So everything that they do in reality is from a flat plane, and then they have to take geometric considerations for their standard refraction.
So they take
but
the
that
flat
would-
Earth and bend it
that
into
would-
a 39.
Can I say something short? In other words, you know it's curved because you have to calculate it flat.
What I was saying is, so they take a flat Earth and they bend it into a 3959 ball. That's what they do.
Well, no, what Andrew Thomas Young is stating there is that he doesn't have a clue what terrestrial refraction is. Because he's doing all his refraction calculations across a flat plane, then he's saying, because we know the Earth is a globe, we need to take geometric considerations.
That's a bait and switch.
But what has that? Yeah. What has it got to do with terrestrial refraction? It means
Nothing.
It means that nothing, because that's an actual change it's a physical change in the physical globe you would stand on.
Yeah, saying here's my suitcase full of
refraction.
Here's my suitcase full of refraction effects. We've studied them greatly and closely. They were all studied on a flat Earth. Now that we know how these refraction effects operate, and we know Earth's a sphere, we can put that into a translation of the R value that basically expands out the size of the globe that we're going to say is what you see. And we're going to call that refraction, just like the refraction on that suitcase I just closed and put behind me. Now I'm going to close this suitcase with an expansion of the globe radius at 7/6R and hand it to you, and check out what it says on the front of the suitcase. It says refraction. On the back it says terrestrial/standard/atmospheric. And you go, okay, so it's refraction then. Thanks very much for the suitcase. You say you studied all of this. Wasn't the stuff you studied in the other suitcase, though? Shh. Off you go. Be gone.
In the early days,
Wow.
excellent summary there. In the early days, it was due to perspective, and that's how they fooled people. And as Arwen pointed out, they didn't realize technology would be in the hands of everyday ordinary people with a P900 or 1000 or anything similar to that, and you'll be able to see that, hey, it's just optical and it's just perspective. It's the convergence. And so they hijack perspective, and I think you have a saying for that. Do you not, Nathan?
If I do, you'll have to remind me, or maybe you can say it.
The
The
hyena thing.
hyenas.
Yeah, the hyena. Come on.
I haven't got anything to contextualize it around. We're not looking at a photo. I've left Simon Dan's stupid face on this slide for too long.
The clock. The
The
clock.
slightly
Just
looming
say it.
non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of a clock from behind the reified physical geometric sphere edge horizon. That.
Well done. Well
Yes.
done. Okay, now they say parallel lines meet at infinity. Well, they're no longer parallel lines, are they? So the whole point is they don't actually meet at infinity, and they even admit they don't. But they have to admit to perspective. So they say, well, parallel lines starting from you here, by the time they hit the celestial sphere, infinity, meet. No, they don't, because you say in the other sentence, parallel lines actually don't meet. So what you're describing is perspective.
So, start the show saying, let's be concise, 23 minutes into the live show. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Wait a second. We're
The
moving now.
universe is spinning, not the Earth.
Just to go back to the last question. Sorry. Not to carry on, just a bit of good news. I was just trying to go through my Twitter feed there. I strolled across a very well-liked Twitter feed yesterday, Nathan, and it was some guy filming a flat earther only has to see a clock tower at 20 miles. And then you go through what a ball earther has to describe it as.
You
And this
really want me
bloke-
to? You want me to give this example?
No, I'm just saying this is something you was on about TikToking and stuff like this. Well, this was a Twitter link that nothing to do with you. Somebody's done that, put it onto TikTok, and then it's been pumped around on Twitter. As I say, I was just trying to look for it of that video while somebody's watching it, laughing their head off as they then get to the way a baller has to describe it. The message is
let me
getting
get
out
straight.
there, mate.
Somebody's put a reaction video of a trimmed out clip that
Nice.
I've done where I summarise a baller having to have the description of a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of a clock from behind the physical reified edge of a sphere edge, and a flat earther going, shush clock. And their reaction to that, laughing at it, is on TikTok.
Laughing
Wonderful.
at what a baller's got to do, yeah. But somebody's done it on TikTok, and that's got popular on TikTok, and then somebody's turned it into a tweet on Twitter to link to the video.
Nice.
Cool. Very good. Yeah, if you can dig me out a link, I'd love to see it.
I've just been annoying. I couldn't find it. I caught it yesterday, but I will. I'll try and find it because they keep popping up in my timeline. These things. There's quite a few guys out
Word's getting out there.
there.
Excellent. What about any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No. Next.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Hmm.
Over there.
This-
Next.
We got an angular distance.
What?
How'd you get that?
Hold on. No, you're missing one of the aspects to having if you're going to use that word, angular distance. I'm assuming I know what you mean by that. What were the aspects of the mathematics you used to get a quote-unquote angular distance?
No, I literally just tried to ram the two words angular and distance together to fix it.
No, but they
it
can go
doesn't work.
together. They can go together. They can. You know, the whole Al-Biruni shtick that we use against them in terms of, well, you'll need a flat earth for that. But that you can summarise as angular distance if you want. He's using angles to get a distance. In this case, distance is up, the height. But you can still mush those two words together if you can justify them. You're just not doing it. Maybe Adam's going to help you out mathematically.
How
I
you
don't
gonna
know.
do it with the
Oh,
sun
you would,
now?
look, in order to compare angular distances, you would need to know either the actual distance or the actual size. But we don't know either. So you could never have that.
Good job.
So
Thank
you
you,
have-
Alvin.
Honestly,
That's what
only
I'm
through
saying.
presupposition.
Alvin's got
So
there.
you
That's what I
have-
wanted from him. Thank you, Alvin.
It's
So
like having a
you're-
volumetric length. It doesn't make any sense.
You what?
An angular distance makes no sense to me.
Calculating a distance
Manual.
from an angle. Obviously, it's not a coherent sentence that Arwin's trying to achieve there. He's trying to achieve the opposite. In fact, he's trying to convolute. But I'm trying to say that no, you could go forth if you hear this convoluted word scramble and justify it with an explanation. But Arwin chose to say, actually, no, I can't because I don't have the componentry required to give this an explanation in ball earth terms when talking about distances to the sun. And he's right.
And what is that componentry?
It's called Ramgular distance.
The
The,
distance to
the
the
only way in
sun?
which you can use it is within celestial navigation, where the coangles has a relative distance assigned to it from your position or the GP. But I say that's using it within celestial navigation. Within math, it doesn't make any sense, does it? It's a misuse of the word.
And on that note, Adam, what is the highest number you subtract from?
Don't mention it.
90.
Shh, don't say 90. So they already know that you need 90. And 90 can never work on a sphere surface.
Oh dear. Next.
Any
In all
scientific...
fairness, there's no actual distance to the sun. We have angles. We have angles in relation to observers on the Earth, and we have an apparent angular size, but it doesn't really seem to be changing about any of the celestials over, well, presumed distance. So, yeah, there might not be a distance to it, an actual one.
I think Brian's logic already answered this. If you have the same angle to the sun on the day shot, and you have the same angle to Polaris at a night shot, are the distances the same according to their distance that they give us?
No, because they presuppose sizes on top of all that.
Well, no, at the end of that, then.
Just, yeah, their distances, right, only start with the shadows. Their sun had to be really big, much bigger, have a much bigger diameter than a globe, and be far enough away to match the angular size we see. Because otherwise, shadows won't work on their model. They can't have a close and local sun because the shadows will prove it's flat. You see, the shadows have to be able to work on the sphere. So the sun has to be way bigger in diameter, but it also has to be far enough away to match the angular size. But what I just one more time said there, what I said there recently was, if I get a 45-degree angle to the sun today, and I get a 45-degree angle to a star tonight, that means that the GP point of both of them are the same distance from my boat, right? Or my plane or whatever. But how does that make the stars further than the sun, or the sun closer than the stars? How can they be further if I can get the same exact distance further than each other, or have one further than the other or whatever? If I can get the same exact distance, GP point to both of them. If you think about it, it's like it makes them all the same distance.
It's just not applicable, though, is it? That's what I was saying. It's just nonsense. I think Arwin was kind of alluding to an application of trigonometry. If you had another side length, you could use that angle to apply trigonometry to it. But I think we recognise that this isn't trigonometry we're doing. So like I say, the only way you can have an angular distance to me is in celestial navigation, where it does relate to the GPs of the celestial object. But the important thing you see is that that's relating to the distance from the viewer to a GP, not the distance directly to the celestial object, just its GP.
Yes, but think about it. How can the celestial object, how can a star be further than the sun, yet its GP be the same distance at the same angle?
Because that's what we don't know, how the heavens plays out. It's not within celestial navigation, that claim's not there. It's only within heliocentric theory that's stated as an obvious fact. One's 93 and the other's are infinite. That's not a necessary claim in celestial navigation. In fact, it's denied, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's where I'm working off. Like they say, they're at an infinite distance. Infinite can also mean they have no distance, if you understand what I mean. Because if the GP point is the same distance from me, and when I take an angle to two different, doesn't matter what they are, just the sun and whatever star, and a 45-degree angle, and I get the same distance to the GP point. How can one be further than the other? If the star was further than the sun, then how am I going to get it? It doesn't make any sense. It's like they have no distance, and saying they have an infinite distance is the only way maybe you could get around it, because they have no distance.
How did you measure the angle to begin with?
That's where I was going.
What do you mean?
Well, you're measuring angles to these things, right? How do we measure the angle to begin with?
With a sextant.
Let's just ask the question. Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
No. And let me add to John's point and to remark to what Adam and Brian were commenting on, because they all link together. When we first started this, and we all started looking into this, what was the first attack on us after they said, shh, don't say 90 and all the other garbage?
You don't understand.
Yes, that's true. What else did they say?
You're
never use the
retarded. Die. You should never have children.
Too late.
You never use the sextant, right?
That's right. And then what else? And I'll bring it here if no one guesses it. What's the most current one?
Well, they've all got degrees in navigation now, haven't they?
Oh yeah, instantly, right? That's right, Adam. All right, so I'll just get to it. Yeah, they say, well, then you should know the distance if it's triangulation. Remember that one?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Okay, and then I would cite their own books, their own experts saying they don't do it for height. They don't do it for the distance to the sun. It's not for that. It's for the co-altitude and the GP of the sun or the star to the GP of the observer. That's what it does. It's an angular function for them in celestial navigation only. And the highest number is 90. So now bring it back to Brian's point, is that how'd they get that? Well, it's flat Earth angle measurements to Polaris, perfectly suited for the equator where you don't see it anymore on their model. And then they make a dingleberry around it. This is such a bait and switch. It is such a trick that we have uncovered it through celestial navigation, where their own experts say it's not for distances from Earth to the sun, but to get the angle so that you know how far on the ground you are from the GP or subpoint of that star when it's directly over the Earth at that year, that month, that day, that hour, that second, which they have in the book for thousands of years in the past to match thousands of years in the future. In fact, you can buy a copy that shows you every mark of these things, 57 navigational stars, adding up to 64 total from the year 2000 to 2050. How do they know all this? If we're moving and it's exploded and it's going in all directions, how is this repeating every single time? And why is the peephole in the pyramids in South America as well as Egypt have the sun come right through it every time, the date they know it's coming through it?
Because it's on a cycle.
Yeah, it repeats itself, just like Genesis says, for times and seasons. That's why it was made.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No, I heard a golfer say the other day when one of my putts came in sideways on the hole, which is very rare. Gravity. No. It can't be gravity because Einstein said it's the bending of space-time. So it was the bending of space-time that caused that ball to go in.
No. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
I have no idea. Okay, next question.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core? Thanks, Mr. deGrasse
Wait
Tyson.
a second. What was that guy's reply, Tent, when you said that? Your fellow golfer.
No, I told Nathan that's what I'm going to say next time because
Oh, okay.
no, I told
Sorry.
Nathan in the pre-show that the next time that happened, because normally I'd say, "What's gravity?" Okay, but I just met these golfers, so I'm going to play with them again next week. So it's going to be the next time he says it. Well, it's just going to be the same thing because when I used to say, "What's gravity?" they just look at you. Well, you know, and I go, "No, I don't know. Tell me." So when I say bending of space-time the next time, it's going to be like, "What are you talking about?" They don't know. The normies don't know.
About that
But it's
molten
going to
iron
be the
core.
same.
Do they know about that?
Get him with.
Molten iron core? Anybody?
I was
You're-
just going to suggest an option for 10. You
Thank
could
you.
say bending of space time. Give them the option. Say, what do you mean, gravity? Bending of space time or spooky action at a distance?
I love it. Spooky. I'll throw that in too. Well, it came in at a magic speed at the side of the hole.
Okay, so about that molten iron core. Any evidence that we have a molten iron core at the centre of the presupposed spherical Earth we bend at 7/6R?
You still trying to get this done in 20 minutes?
They're
No.
still working on it. They keep on trying new P waves and S waves techniques, but they haven't gotten there yet.
You'll need a flat Earth for
Well,
those.
the new technique is an ionic liquid layer, I think. I'd have to look it up. I'll look it up for another day, but I'm sure the new thing is a form
not
of
just ionic.
ionized layer that
It's super,
Go on, Creation
not
Bear.
just ionic, it's super ionic.
was. But it'd have to be, wouldn't it? I don't know. What does that mean? I don't know. It's just better than ionic.
Like a turbo ionic.
Just roll with it.
It's a GTI molten iron core.
Remember that back in the 80s, everything was turbo.
Hmm.
Aftershave, it's turbo.
Yeah.
Right, shout out to Goldie. It says, big love from South Florida. Thank you very much. That is all. And then palm trees and hearts. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Did we get to any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? I asked it. I don't know if I got any answers.
No.
He said no.
It's impossible in their respective fields. I mean, the individuals could probably devise a viable hypothesis, but they could not apply it to their field because those fields demand presuppositional based assumptions. So can't do it.
Well,
The
it's just- they-
dulcet
they
tones of
can't
Michiu
vary it,
Kaku.
can
Hold on
they?
1 second, guys. What was that from Michiu Kaku?
In science, we always say that you make observations, you have a theory, you go make more observations, and it's a very, very tedious process. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
I guess we don't have any hypotheses from you then, Michiu. That's a shame. Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius?
You're gonna need a flat plane for that.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure, like we'll breathe, without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon? And as we've
Negative.
got another Simon Dan screen, we might as well use him as our example. Here we have clouds and such. Yeah. Now, beyond those clouds and such, if we just focus on this layer here, right, what we've got is high pressure gas. That's what's claimed this picture is of. Next to a 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum. Now, if the sky was, as depicted here, and claimed to be, a vacuum, then the gas we breathe would fill the space.
You can't test it. We're in a system where there is gas pressure, thus contained, as per natural law. Well, we can't, or we don't know how to escape that predicament in order to be able to test whether it is possible without a container.
Can anybody answer why it's necessary to apply a transformative equation like the Haversine formula if the Earth is already a sphere?
I am working on it, but I don't have an answer yet.
Your orders,
I have
But it's certainly not.
your orders are
It's
always
certainly
followed.
not
And
related to
Santiago was not
the
to be
surface.
touched. Then why was it necessary to transfer Santiago off the base?
I'll answer it from the celestial navigation books. Because the vertex of the angle is coming from the equatorial plane. And then it's projected back from the celestial sphere to an arc, as if the protractor's arc, if you could imagine that. And they make that the surface between 2 points.
See, that's what I think they're doing, Tamp. Doing that calculation in the sky, which they pretend is on the Earth, but it's that angular change between the great circles you create between the 2 points that the I see this. I'm still not sure because it's really complicated.
Well, it's. Let me see if I can give you something, because I'm in between my move and everything. I'm still researching more. But here's a meridian. Is now the full great circle. A meridian is the equator to the North Pole. It's 90 degrees. It's within that framework that they do it. So we're back to 90 again. And we're looking at a protractor, and we're seeing the baseline of a protractor, and then we're seeing the arc of the protractor. And what's 90? That's your zenith. What's the base? That's your zero line. That's the equatorial plane. And so they cut the sphere in half, and they say, here's the angle from that baseline, which is flat Earth. And then they project it out to the arc of the protractor. But the way they do it is they say it projects to the celestial sphere. And then from the celestial sphere, it's projected back to the arc of that protractor. And there's your 2 points. That's the transformative formula that Haversine does for them.
Now, Phil B disagrees. He says the Haversine formula calculates distances on a sphere, nothing to do with flat anything. Thanks for your input, Phil.
I'd like to challenge Phil. And how did you get the angular how did you get the angle in the first place, Phil? Where'd you get? Did you get it from the curved baseline of that sphere, or did you go to the equatorial plane where it's flat, where nobody's at?
You know he can't get it from the curved baseline. He had to go there.
Well, of course, because their equatorial plane is the plane we live on.
Okay, speaking of Phil, that concludes the housekeeping. So in the pre-show, we were discussing people's objections to our refinement of housekeeping. So as it stands, there's a few little changes going on, a little tweaks here and there. Little tweak here and there, I should say. For example, we discussed the requirement for an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline. That's a relatively new housekeeping question. Further to that, there's several points that have been added into all housekeeping questions, as in the requirement for a flat Earth to have the angle return signal when you're talking about P waves and S waves. Again, these little refinements are sparks flying up a very sharp knife that we're refining on an almost daily basis. Don't get me wrong, some days there are no refinements happening for whatever reason. But generally speaking, that's what's happening. We're at the wheel, there's sparks flying everywhere, and we're sharpening up the knife. There's another housekeeping question as a third example, just to make the point absolutely clear, in regards to John's question that we just covered with Phil Bell. I'm going somewhere with this, by the way. So, asking why there's a transformative equation being applied to anything if the Earth's already spherical is going to eventually be refined into something that can get rattled off and never get, through within 5 minutes in the beginning of the show as it was originally intended with housekeeping. But it might get refined into a question that actually gets asked in the same way each day. So these aren't like us standing still or sitting on our laurels or whatever the phrase is when it comes to the show and how it's developed. We're constantly refining these arguments. Anyway, there's going to be a certain section of the people watching that are like, I've watched that, I understand the arguments. Yeah, I get it. Al Bruni needed a I'm not going to repeat what I did in the pre-show, and that I'll save that. Go and watch the pre-show if you want that little spiel that I was about to launch into, but I won't. The point is that if you are one of those people and you're like, no, I'd much rather watch the knife go through a fundy when they assert some nonsense that annoys me, or that I have to defend in comments, or whatever it is that is your reasoning for wanting us to take apart a fundy live. I get it. Now, there's always going to be a certain ebb and flow to the show, but that's something that you, which is where I'm going with this, can influence directly. Now, it is, I don't know from my metrics, typically the case that if a fundy joins, that is going to be the point that most people hit the share button and go, I know, I'll share this. Because this has got my adrenaline pumping. This has got me excited. Obviously, you're more inclined to share it, right? Yeah, that's fine. That's wonderful. I don't want anybody to stop doing that. But it's sharing these shows, the ones that are a refinement on housekeeping, a discussion internally about the ether, whatever it is that is not necessarily a fundy having their head taken off. That is the kind of show that next man in line will benefit from in an educational way. But as a direct consequence of you sharing it to that man, there might be a different next man that sees it and objects to what we're saying live and appreciates that he can join and will, because there's a link below to I was about to say Discord, to Gilded, where there's a public gateway. Now, frankly, I don't care what that public gateway is, be it Discord, it was originally Google Hangouts, then it was Meet, now it's Gilded. Whatever the public gateway is irrelevant, so long as somebody's got the means to come on. But they have to see that, whatever it has been now, we're coming up to 50 minutes, a very calm discussion about how Earth has got to be flat when you're acquiring an elevation angle measurements. Somebody's going to hear that and go, hang on a second, no, they're definitely navigating it spherical. I want to correct them. But they're only going to come if you click that share button. Because the show numbers, we haven't even topped 100 viewers on this show, which tells me that those people, they need to be spoken to. I need to address them. I need to speak to you if you're that person. Now, that's what I'm doing, in case you hadn't picked up on it. I'm not being subtle, right? You can directly influence whether or not there's people having their heads taken off with the knife that we tend to be refining by sharing the shows that don't necessarily have that beheading in the show. I.e., that's what encourages, and I say it every single introduction, the purpose of me saying share the show isn't necessarily just to get me to say, oh no, there's only 96 people watching. Oh, it'd be much better if there was 150. Yeah, and there probably would be if we were pummeling a fundy. But that's catch-22. You've got to share the show to get the guy who hasn't seen the show before to come along and object and want to correct us. Because that's all this is. We're just baiting people when we're refining our blade. Oh yeah, you're sharpening your knife. Doesn't mean you can put it through me. Yeah? What about boats and buildings? Getting blocked by the horizon, muppet. Yeah? Then they find out how sharp the blade is, don't they? But if you're objecting, as there are people currently doing, to the repetitive nature of refining a blade, yeah, you've got to understand that without that refinement, it wouldn't be a sharp blade, first and foremost. But that's what baits people in. Watching the guy sharpening the blade, you just assume he's not very good at wielding it because he's the guy sharpening it, right? Well, they find out different, don't they? If you share the show, I'll point at this little ramble. Smash the share button if you're that person. Oh, this isn't what I want. I don't want to see you talking about how I understand the Earth to be flat and how it's measured flat, how it's navigated flat, and how they build on it flat. I want to see you correct somebody live. Share the show. You'll get that person here.
All right. So I challenge Phil Bell right now to stop being a chat skank warrior to come on the show. He's always there saying we're wrong. Well, he can come on the show and he can have a one-on-one with any of us.
You're a salesman. You've appealed to as a salesman, I feel bad that you said that. No. What's his need? As a salesperson, that's the first thing you need to establish. I already know why he's here. He's here for his own deluded pain relief that he spews into the chat. So he doesn't want to come and challenge you and actually be proven wrong live. That's not on his wish list. Come on.
I didn't have my... come on, Nathan. I didn't have my salesman hat on when I said that. I'm this retired farmer who read celestial navigation books and listened to your show for a few years and learned other fine arguments against his position that he keeps saying in chat that we're wrong. So come and whether it's Brian's Logic, Adam, myself, you, or anyone else, Come on the show instead of hiding in chat. What's to be afraid of a farmer who's retired? You're
Yeah,
a
you
school
crazy
teacher.
flat Earth farmer. No, Phil Bell's a professor. It's beneath him.
Says, why does flat Earth need degrees for longitude and latitude? Well, Phil B, come on and ask us that question. We're right here.
As I say, you
What was
can
the
interact
question?
with Phil from the Chat Skanking Chats peanut
It's,
gallery.
it's,
But
it's a Cartesian laced question, Brian.
What was his question? Sorry, I just missed
Why
that. there.
does flat Earth need degrees for longitude and latitude?
They're based off of flat? My God, where does the latitude and longitude grid come from, Phil?
I don't
Does it
know,
come
Brian.
from-
I don't know where the latitude and longitude come from. Maybe you could tell us.
Yeah, the flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. That's what gives us our latitude and longitude positions. You can't
Thank
get that on
you.
a globe. Remember, the globe's horizon is supposed to be refracted at a rate of 7/6 of the radius, which is a physical changing in the actual size of the physical globe, which means none of the, yet we use that exact horizon to get the exact latitude and longitude position. But that's where your radius comes from. It comes from, it's derived from flat Earth elevations angles to Polaris, which means that you can't use a 7/6 radius to get the correct latitude and longitude degrees, placements on the globe, because it has to not have 7/6 or for that to ever even work mathematically. Why do you think that works on your globe? It has nothing to do with the globe.
Can't get elevation angle measurements from a curved surface. Woohoo! Over 100 people watching. Massive shout out to all of you. Smash the share button. Please share the show if you haven't done so already.
If your horizon is being claimed to be refracted, then you will not have latitude and longitude positions. You'll have longitude up to a point, but you won't have latitude. The longitude will eventually not work either when you go south of the equator, but latitudes won't work with 7/6 odd. It can't. It's impossible. Your globe is too big. But they work perfectly all the time using the sea horizon and a flat
Worth
plane.
a plug. So
All of
on
it.
both Brian's Logic channel and this channel where it was originally aired, Brian does a full presentation on this. It's Flat Earth Debate Special Edition with Brian's Logic, or whatever Brian titled it on his own channel, which you should subscribe to today. So Brian, if you plug your own presentation that you mirrored, because then hopefully someone will spam it in the link and they can go and subscribe to you immediately, as they should have done so already. How dare they?
Thanks, Nathan. I just, when I hear that, it's just like, I'm sorry, it makes me irate. It's like, are you somebody that does no learning or does no personal thinking for yourself at all? I mean,
you
how
can't
can
teach an
you
old dog new
claim?
tricks.
Phil Bell is
Yeah.
pretty old, so I mean,
It means he's not, but nothing to do with age. It means he doesn't do any personal thinking for himself whatsoever. He doesn't use logic when it comes to these matters whatsoever. He might use logic all day with everyday things, but when it comes to this, he doesn't have any use of logic.
Why does that enrage you? Shouldn't you just pity him?
Well, he's sticking to his model.
He never needed logic before to get through, so he's just doing what's been working for him his entire life.
Yeah,
Hold
can't
on. By
teach
the
an
way,
old
can I
dog
have
new
a peek at
tricks.
that model?
Sorry, Neil, I rumpused you, saying you can't teach an old dog new
I
tricks.
just said, can I have a peek at that model? And he claims that you have to have a professional globe, okay, and then you could do celestial navigation with a professional globe.
No, they need an
I can get an ordnance survey map from my newsagent and post office and a million other places.
They need an equatorial plane, which they later do a transformative equation to make it into a dingleberry.
Ordnance survey, Google Earth, they all show it mapped out flat. Just go and see for yourself. Draw an elevation profile in Google Earth. Draw it across the entire world, and it'll show you reference to zero, how high or low things are on a flat plane.
Let me tell you how consensus science is so strong with Phil Bell. I can't remember a time in my life, especially the first time I brought it up, to this day, that I changed my mind on this. Water at rest is level. I argued that point with my teacher when I was in grade school. And you all know what he said. I don't even believe it. I just have to teach it. Phil Bell, you've been teaching this junk. Are you going to be as honest as that teacher that you're programmed to do so, or you might lose your job if you start telling the truth? What's going on here? We know water at rest is level. That's why it's called sea level, zero. That's the zero. That's how you measure the height of a mountain. You use sea level. It's got to be zero.
You like my thumbnail, by the way? I posted it in Masturbators. Refraction! No? I thought it was good. I'm on it now. I've got capabilities to actually make a thumbnail while a live show is being produced. So yeah. The other thing that's happened recently is the transition to Gilded. And, you know, the popularity of Discord meant such that there was plenty of people who already were on Discord that are like, oh, I can just join that server. I mean, for me, I don't use either, and I couldn't care less what the gateway is, but obviously it does have an effect on how much passing trade you get through the server itself, because there's going to be a tertiary dude that's already in Discord. But if he's already in Discord, he's probably already a chat troll anyway. You know what I mean? Not that everyone in Discord's chat trolls, but...
Nathan, the pictures of a turkey. Turkeys don't say "burger," they say
refraction. What was it supposed to be then, if not a turkey?
A chicken.
A chicken?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know why I pictured turkey. But
Yeah,
in my mind,
turkey
it's
doesn't
turkey
make that
saying refraction.
noise.
I thought the point of it is it's just wiki parroting. So it'd be refraction. I thought it was a parrot.
Yeah, but parrots
It
don't
is a
really make that
parrot.
noise either. It's
It
really,
is a
it's a
parrot.
chicken thing.
No, it's not. It's a parrot.
Yes,
No,
nice
it's a
pun.
chicken.
Nice pun. Neil.
I
No,
literally
they parrot it.
I hear birds downstairs here talk about refraction on a daily basis. Those
Okay,
are
but what do
chickens.
parrots do? They repeat what they hear.
Yes, we get
Yeah, but
the
that's not what
parroting
they do
aspect of
among
it, Neil. Thank
themselves,
you.
though. They
However,
make beep, beep, beep noises.
Wow, this is getting really. Look, may I just comment on what you said earlier, Nathan? There are people who show up to the show for entertainment. They missed the bashing of the Globehead days, yeah, but you know, they got their head so bashed in, they don't want to come back in. Like that's why I believe Phil doesn't want to come and talk to us live. Number two, if you're here along the similar reasons I'm here, is to learn good arguments and then go use them with people and see how they work in the public when the opportunity presents itself. And that's where you get your greatest joy, is when you actually use the arguments. And then you come and tell your stories here, which help others see that they can do it. There's nothing to be afraid of or, you know, suspect, because these are great arguments and you're just asking questions from people who've been brainwashed all their whole life. And it depends why people come to your show. If they come here for entertainment, they're missing the bashing of the heads. But if they come here to learn, they're being equipped to go out and use it, then they can come in and share. And then the people they share with, if any of them wake up, they're going to join your show. So it's that kind of a show for me.
and the moral is, of course, please share the show. But with that, I'm going to say, first and foremost, a huge, enormous thank you to both G Plus and Gilded Panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming stream, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Another massive thank you to all of you who tuned in live, smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Yes, it is.
We are.
And isn't it great that we all are in the bubble and get along and we just say the same thing?
You're the rumpusy one, Harwin, all right?
Yeah, it's because I gave him a big compliment and I was just pushing his luck. So when I say let's keep this concise, then try and indirectly reference Baldwin as being the potential cause of any disruption, Arwin then took it upon himself to cause as much rumpusing Baldwin behaviour as he could get away with.
But he did stop.
He did stop pretty soon.
Until
it was only
you told me that you were sick of it, and then I stopped.
I was going to say he did
on.
stop almost immediately when I expressed my disapproval. But it just by then it had already achieved what Arwin wanted, which is why I'm smiling now. Which is it developed that conversation. So as always, in reality we should be thanking him because it developed into about 50-minute conversation.
I just wanted to know about a telescope. That's all. Didn't they have telescopes back then? Normal people.
How many times?
No, they didn't. It was way too expensive back then.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to back Arwin here because Baldwin is replacing all the people who are afraid to show up. And Baldwin's much better than they are.
I agree with that.
I do my best, but I mean, I wish still there would, at some point, ballers or anti-flat earthers even would be allowed back on again, even though we can't stand them. And they will probably show worse sides of them than before. No. It's just that, a good challenge is really enervating. So
I agree with Arwin. I got a suggestion. Hold on. Let it be one day that certain people are allowed back in.
No.
One day.
No, that's not the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is Arwin has such a high standard in the way he does it. They're all afraid to come in because they can't even get to that level. So he scared them off.
I'll help them. I'll guide them.
Have one day.
I've done it with Rumpus. I don't know if you guys noticed, but even when Rumpus was still on, we would actually in the moment team up together, and you guys would get really livid with me, by the way, over that.
I bet that was hilarious. As much as when I listen back, I always kind of, on the one hand, I'm going, when you kind of go, oh God, why do you sound so annoyed with him? It's not that big a deal. That looks bad. But you feed off it. I know damn well you do. So when I listen back, I'm always chuckling at my own annoyance with you. So I can only assume if I'm chuckling at my own annoyance with you, and it's genuine, I'm genuinely more like, stop it, I'm getting pissed off here. I'm not putting that on, right? But it does amuse me, especially when it 9 times out of 10, not always, it's roses from perceived to be at the time shit, right? So I'm sure that you probably get off on that to a certain degree, right, Arwin? I'm reading between the lines.
but it's always been like a bonus, right? The funniness of it is the bonus, because to me in that moment, like getting the synchronization, being able to attune with them to really, really basically in that singular moment become like a spiritual brother for just a few seconds, that was really my focus. I was really trying to get close to them, right? And
well, I live rent-free in a lot of their heads.
And that you guys are agitated, like that's all secondary.
I was just about to say, I live rent-free in a lot of their heads, so you irritating me. They love that. They get off on that a lot more than you take a pleasure in what you're achieving when there's a positive outcome when we're discussing elevation angles, the horizon, whatever it may be, refraction in that instance. The outcome's obviously going to be delightful for you if you've generated it. But by the same token, like you say, in an instant, there's certain people that will have not empathy, I don't know what the word is, that can just take solace in what you've achieved and annoying me. And they're like, yeah. But then it quickly fades away.
Nathan, you know what it is? It's, living on a ranch.
Constellation is the word.
Living on a ranch, all kinds of, critters, animals, bugs, got to kill them, right? So I go to that place where you buy the poison for these things, but you don't want your dog eating the poison or any of that either, or birds. So they got it all chemically treated in such a way. So I said, well, look, I want to kill this type of, creature. What do you have for it? And they said, well, you want to kill them fast? You buy this. You want to kill them slow? You buy this. I go, well, tell me the process. Well, this one, they keep coming back. It goes to their nest. And then the the queen or whatever dies, etc. So Arwen is us. Baldwin is that slow poison. They're taking Baldwin back to their nest. You are that quick kill. I mean, it is so obvious that Baldwin makes friends with them, but they don't realize that they're making friends, and Baldwin is a slow killing poison to their argument.
That's a good illustration.
Yeah, it's
Oh, and
good-
don't
good
you agree
analogy.
with me that there should be one day, just one day, where Rumpus can come back in? Because I feel bad. The guy's wandering around all over the internet looking where he could come in and just be himself.
Yeah, he
Like,
just
he
wants to apply
lied.
his skill.
But he
No.
lied. So
No,
what?
no,
So we
the
can
problem is-
forgive him for a day.
Once you've learnt your lesson with someone
You'll
like
be
Rumpus,
sorry, Neil.
he's more than willing to lie about his own words when he's caught out in a problem that leaves the globe Earth in a fail. He's rather. It's probably why he remains so anonymous with a name like Rumpus. He's just there to cause the disturbance. He's not there to actually achieve any wins. He's just there to make sure there's no losses, and to his own detriment. In other words, me finding him scrolling past Andrew Thomas Young's document about the horizon not being a physical limitation to your view, while he was telling us in debate that the Isle of Man is being blocked by a hill getting in the way called Earth Curve, he knew he was lying then. Now, when I called him out on it and pointed it out to him and gave him the example and gave him 3 opportunities to say, okay, that's how it was then, but, you know, I just wasn't applying Andrew Thomas Young's refracted horizon when I said the horizon was blocking the Isle of Man. I was just, you know, it didn't have any excuse. He couldn't have any excuse. So what did he do? Chose to lie. No, I didn't. Yeah, he did. We spent plenty of months arguing about how the horizon being Earth curve was getting in the way of the Isle of Man and how much it was blocking it by. I pretty much remember those many months. No, I didn't. No, I always said the horizon was refracted. Yeah, so he just lied. So this is a person that you're not going to achieve any points of debate being conceded, because at all costs, even to his own detriment, well, what's the detriment to? Some faceless, nameless troll? He will never, ever concede. He won't take any loss. No matter how right you are or how much being wrong must prove him a liar. It did, and I'm not having him back. No matter what you say about missing him. Sorry.
I get it, but I
not
genuinely
bring him back.
Actually, I genuinely think he blanked it out of his mind. I think the entire event was so devastating and embarrassing on a very personal level that he basically blanked it out and he couldn't see it. Like, I remember times when you were actually playing him saying that, and then he still would say, nope, because I don't think he could hear it anymore. It was so embarrassing. He literally just blanked that out of his memory.
Fantastic.
No,
I'm saying
no.
just for one
That's
day,
the-
one day.
No.
That's the slow Baldwin poison right there. Thank you, Arvin. Go on, Brian.
I was
Yeah,
just saying
no.
one day. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, don't ever bring him back. He's a lowlife, he's a scumball, and he's a liar.
I agree.
And you can put this out there that I'm willing to debate. I want to debate Rumpus one-on-one in front of the biggest faculty in the biggest university in the UK with the biggest amount of faculty and students there and television cameras. One-on-one. Then we'll see what
Never
Rumpus
gonna
is.
do it.
He won't do it because
Yeah,
he'll have
then
to
we'll
dox. No,
see.
that's not his purpose in life. He'll have to dox
Hold on,
himself. He'd
Brian,
have to.
I do remember
There you go.
calling
That's
him
my
drunk.
hang on, Neil. That's my offer to Rumpus.
Wait a second. Did you not reach out to him when you had a bit too much to drink?
Nothing to do with it. I bet him then, even when I was drunk, I
know,
bet
but
him.
I'm saying just
That's
the
not the
one day,
point.
a nostalgia,
That's not the point. That's
day.
not the point. Nobody cares.
The trouble
Nobody
is,
cares.
Are you a drinking,
trouble
you
is
say?
that
Hmm,
the
that's
Rumpus
interesting.
Isn't real, is it?
I don't know if you're a bit of a drinker.
Hang on. To accuse
Why
an
did Neil
Irish.
have to bring in that in? It doesn't matter.
Listen,
let's
to
labour it
accuse-
indefinitely.
No, I wasn't saying it
It was
you were drunk,
Christmas.
Brian. I was saying
It was
because
Christmas.
didn't you call
Doesn't
him?
matter. Doesn't matter.
So you don't want to talk to him at all. You don't feel bad for the guy?
Neil, can I not
So
just
they've always got some excuse, haven't they? It was Christmas.
Calm down.
Forget about it.
Rumpus is creating a rumpus over a distance. Calm down, everybody.
When they call you a drunk,
one
you're
nostalgia
better off
day.
just embracing it. I
No,
think.
no. I did not say he was a drunk.
Okay,
I said,
Neil,
I was
just
trying
stop
to
a
say
sec.
that you
Just
enjoyed the
Neil.
conversation.
Yeah, Neil, I told you that privately, right? That I reached that one time at Christmas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Neil's a
It was on
trust
here.
betrayer. Oh, that's
that's not
much
in your
worse than you
No,
being
no,
a
no,
drunk.
no. It was on here.
Neil, I'm Irish. How do you think I get enough hassle online about being Irish, right? I'm constantly getting it. I'm constantly getting it off these lowlifes on the other side, and now I'm going to get way more of it.
I didn't mean it that way.
Hold on, I'm confused. Hold on, what could they possibly have
Hang on,
against you for being Irish?
I didn't mean it that way, Brian.
Nathan, did your viewer count just go up to 150? I mean, come on.
I'm being serious. Hold on. Hold on.
I did not mean it that way, Brian. All I was saying was you used to enjoy conversing with him. At one time, during the holidays, you called him up. It was hysterical. Wasn't mean it because you're a drunk. What the
I
freak,
know
man?
you don't mean it that way, Neil, but I was actually trying to put out a serious challenge to Rumpus.
Okay, we get it. Okay. The truth hurts. We know. Let's move on.
No, forget it.
No,
forget it.
No,
forget
no,
it.
I think Brian.
I actually was trying to put out a serious challenge there to Rumpus. A call out, an actual public call.
Can everyone take a step back so I can get Brian? Let's get
it.
Brian's blood pressure back down because that has gone on quite long enough.
No, Nathan.
Right, stop. Hello.
Official. Just give Brian.
Hello, I'm going to get control.
Wants to put
Arwen,
out
please
an
stop.
official
Brian,
challenge.
stop.
Why not let him?
It's going to be. I know that this is going to get interrupted by Neil. Stop, please. Stop.
Nathan, I'm not going
For
to
the love
say
of
anything I
Jesus,
want.
does stop 15 times mean keep talking through me incessantly, indefinitely, while I have to keep saying stop for another 25 times? Please.
I'm not talking about the same thing.
Oh, just keep going. Brian's trying to make a point about someone like Rumpus, the faceless, nameless, lying scum that he is. Brian's trying to say, no, put your credibility where your mouth is, where it will have some consequence in front of an entire auditorium of students. Now, will he take him up on that? No. Why not? Well, because he can be that scummy, lying bastard that he is if he's got nothing to lose as a consequence. Now, he's not going to be in a position to be in front of an auditorium full of students with his name under the tag saying Rumpus. I think not. I think that's Brian's point. Maybe I'm completely wrong with where he's going, but hopefully Brian will continue from that.
Yeah, good. Brian, that was a very noble thing, and I'd love to see it. I think my point I was going to make is that the Rumpus doesn't exist. Yeah, he's not real. He's an internet character that spits nonsense drivel and uses the whole body of science. For him to actually appear in public would mean it's no longer the Rumpus. It would be an individual, and he wouldn't be able to behave like the Rumpus. No human being would in public. So I think respect, but there's no way he's going to turn up because the Rumpus can't turn up.
He
If you
probably
give him
wouldn't
one
be able
day,
to, hold on.
you
He probably
give
wouldn't
him
be
one-
able to act like Rumpus if he was on camera, and that's why he's never on camera.
No.
right? But if you give him one
the
day
Rumpus
to come
only
on
exists.
and let Brian challenge him.
Neil, thanks. The point I'm making is the Rumpus only exists on the internet. Whoever he is in the real life, that isn't him. It's just a persona solely reserved for the behavior that is tolerated and the way you can interact with people on the internet. You can't behave like that in real life.
Well, at least challenge him. Bring him on and challenge him. Maybe he'll surprise you.
Neil,
No,
Go over your head,
on.
Neil. Did I go straight over your head?
it did.
Yes, you did.
It did. He already
Did I
challenged.
understand correctly what the fuck you said? No shit. He only exists as a character. I'm not a fucking idiot.
Neil.
Holy shit.
Neil, calm down. Listen, he already was challenged. He's a liar to begin with. It's over. He's not coming back. He's been challenged. Quit trying to stir up something.
Hi, guys.
Tired of that shit. Nothing goes over my freaking head. Nothing.
Oh, it was strange because your response had no resemblance to what I said. In fact, it kind of ignored the point I was making. That's why I asked.
There's a few of them people like that. On the I've never met Rumpus. Hey guys, it's One Deck. There's a few on the internet. They even tell me they've had run-ins with QE and Nathan, and I've been telling them about the new Gilded platform and saying come in, and because he's going on about it has to be a globe for celestial navigation. I've had conversations with him for the last 4 weeks, and you just get nowhere with these guys. I'll read you something he's wrote in a minute. It's absolutely pathetic. But I've been saying, listen, I can have a word with the guys on the pre-show. Come in. No one's gonna hassle you. Name calling. You can get your point across live, and then you'll be famous for proving the globe. Just come in and do it. And they won't do it. They want to stay on them platforms like Instagram, where they can just do what they do, and that's what Rumpus sounds like. But I'll just read one of the messages he sent me yesterday. See what you think about this. So this was going on for hours, but he's basically replied, "Do you realise you just ignored everything I said? Let me try caps like surfers do. Maybe that will work. In celestial navigation, we use a horizontal tangent to Earth's surface. We do not use Earth's surface between 2 points for our baseline in step 1 of obtaining elevation angle. It is literally an imaginary line from your eye to the horizon. And apply dip correction to bring you to 0, where it's a tangent to the spherical Earth. No horizon at 0 feet. It's a point on a tangent line, as you can see in the picture. All you're doing is trolling and seeking attention, because obviously you are not getting any from the lady. You are sitting on your back porch alone, smoking some herb and drinking alone. And this is what you're up against. But this guy...
Well, hold on. Let's just address one little thing in there. Just because it's been a while since I've said this. Right. Tangent, you say? Where did you get a tangent from? Bearing in mind this show is specifically headlined with the word refraction coming out of a turkey. Refracted, you say? So, tangent, where'd you get that?
What, a straight line?
Straight line? Hold on, no, Adam. No. The lines are bent. It's standard. Standard 7/6 bent line. You wouldn't expect to see physical geometry. You know, the reason the hill is behind the oil rigs is because it's refracted. It's standard. What's refracted? Deviated from straight. What's a tangent? A straight line. So he's telling you that when you do dip angle correction to get to 0, what's that? Oh, that's not Earth's surface that we're navigating either. It's a 0 point drawn out to infinity that's not what we're going to navigate, because that's tangent to a sphere. We haven't got a tangent. What tangent? That's where Roofy got a pummeling about 6 months ago now, didn't he? Hey, Roofy, you still watching? Where'd you get that tangent? Well, that physical geometric sphere edge that used to be blocking the Isle of Man, but is now Andrew Thomas Young's "we're never going to see the refracted horizon" being geometric. Why would you expect to see it? Yeah, well, because tangents are being used by dickheads like Roofy in this exact scenario, aren't they? And they don't have one, do they? So that's the end of that argument. Nice little nonsense waffle he came up with, though. Would have probably got past most people. Shame that knife is nice and refined and has just whipped his head off. But he ain't going to come here to have that head removal, is he? He'd rather do it on Twitter, where he can have 50 other people block the reply by saying, yeah, these people are idiots.
Exactly. And he's been offered nicely on the show with no, come on the show, let's hear what you got to say. Do it on a live audience. Prove your globe to us. No, won't do that. Just hides behind his fucking desktop talking shite.
Because that's what they want. That's pain relief. What he's looking for is people to congregate around him and say, yeah, aren't they silly with their flat earth notions you're terrified by? Go away and don't be terrified of them anymore. There's nothing to be scared of. They're all just stupid. They don't understand. You understand, don't you? You've explained to yourself how you've got this imaginary tangent to a sphere after drawing out horizontal planes and navigating them. With a globe surplus to requirements drawn in a mathematics you're trying to justify with a tangent? You haven't got one.
They need two of them. And it doesn't work that way.
But yeah, those people will come if they happen to find their way to the show and hear us doing what we do. Not necessarily going through Twitter responses, because this would scare the living crap out of me if I was that guy. And I'd written that off after getting a base understanding of celestial navigation. Or to be more accurate, reading several of the commenters' replies about how you need to respond to this. And then just begurking them out. Not realising that they're appealing to a tangent we're being told we wouldn't expect to see. That only exists in the maths. But yet we're navigating with this method, aren't we? What are we navigating? Not the surface, he says, over and over again, because he's parroted it off some of the commenter.
At best, you've debunked the radius of the Earth.
That's why John refracted curvature said, I'll concede to everything you have. I'm just going to make 2 points. And he killed him with it. And then they flustered and rumpused him and called him all kinds of names when he conceded to everything they had.
Oh, what's his namesake? John. What's his namesake, you say?
Refracted curvature?
Oh, why is he called that?
Mm-hmm.
John's namesake speaks directly to his conversion from sphere Earth belief and ridicule of us to, oh my God, I can't measure Earth as a sphere. There is no radius acquisition. There is no tangent point. There is no physical measurement of Earth as a sphere. That's when he converted to flat Earth and gave himself the name, quote, refracted curvature. Because that's what you've got left. The death of your model is refracted curvature. They didn't know it when they started barking at us in 2020. Oh, it's refraction. No, that's the death of geometry. And that's your claim. Bye-bye, globe Earth claim. Your geometric physical obstruction, formerly known as Earth curve, is dead then. Refracted. Yeah, that leaves you with a paradoxical inability to get any measurements.
Well, we'd said when it first came out, Jan 2020, that we took kind of like fun bets. I said 9 months. Boy, was I off. Some people said 18 months. Boy, were they off. But guess what? Somewhere there, John was listening. And what did we gain?
And a lot of insight into baller mentality and quite a few decent arguments about how Earth has come from being flat to being spherical, with conversions with puppets doing them in his kitchen, turning the flat plane of his kitchen into a sphere. So refracted curvature has had a massive amount to offer since his conversion back in 2020 to flat Earth, simply because he now knows there is no way to physically measure and verify that you're on a sphere Earth. There isn't any physical measurements of a sphere Earth. And when we point that out, we're told we wouldn't expect to get them. And what are we talking about when we say them and that and it? We're talking about Earth curve. There isn't any. Horizon's not Earth curve.
And John is not just some normal person that I run into on a daily basis. John has a degree in mechanical and electrical engineering. He's a well-studied man.
That's right. But you're all assets. You know, we could go through all of them. It's not here at the moment. And it's probably best if we don't do it with Arwin in his presence, because it'll go to his head as it did in the last couple of days.
Nathan, how do you know where my assets?
Oh, yeah. We can include you in that as well. You're definitely an asset.
Oh, that was a pun. How do you know where my assets?
Mine sits on a chair.
Thank you, Adam.
So is mine.
I'm just a bum.
You're just a
I
farmer
have one.
who wants to debate PhDs.
I'll debate anyone.
Yes, I do. I was given a high compliment by a very educated man who owns several businesses and had master's degrees. We were at a pizza kitchen, all right, sitting at the bar where they were making pizza, and I started sharing some of the housekeeping questions with him. And he says, "Man, you're educated. Where'd you go to school?" And I go, "Well, I really didn't." He says, No, I've got brothers and sisters who have degrees. They don't talk like you." Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everybody on the show that would make that guy say that about me. And I didn't go to college except for one semester to please my mother.
Sure, but while you can pass the credit on to all of us, let's be reasonable and say that in actuality we owe it all to basically one man, and that's Math Powerland. So let's all have a moment's silence.
Yeah, no,
Hi,
Thank
Kiwi.
Jaren.
I didn't see you there, Kiwi. How you doing?
How is Matt doing these days? I haven't heard from him in a while.
Exactly. That's why I said let's have a moment's silence, implying he's dead. He's not. Actually, there was something I was going to talk about on the live show, but then I hesitated and thought, no, I'll keep it for an after show. So the discussion yesterday, Adam, that I was testing the computer with while you guys were chit-chatting, I did actually go back and listen back, mainly because I got victory royale and I wanted to see me winning. But, you know, I also happened to listen to the conversation, which was excellent, while that was going on. And I was assessing the visual quality. But the conversation was really good. And it was late in the conversation, after I'd moaned and gone, no, this isn't necessary, and all the rest of it. It got to a point where it was diluted down between you and refracted curvature in terms of the main issues. And at first I was like, oh, I could trim this out. But then I thought, no, because it's a mid-section of a discussion. It's not got enough context, even though it's about 30 minutes long or 20 minutes long. But after thinking about the context of the conversation itself, I do actually think it would be beneficial to discuss it, not in the context I said would be bad, but in the true emissarial, if that's the correct word, sense. In other words, at some point, can you disseminate what your, I don't want to call it an investigation because that's not your role as an emissary, right? You're not there
inquiries.
to... Pardon?
Requests for information and inquiries.
Inquiry.
Yeah.
That's the word, Arwin. You're there to inquire.
Yeah, I mean, I'd happily go through that and the answers, because I think that's reasonable. I don't want to attack people. I just really want to go through the responses and try and make sense of them. And if people want to add in and add context to that, might be helpful, because it's still detailed that I don't understand. It doesn't hold water with me. It's not.
Okay, because there was so much objection, mainly from Neil. But if you wanted to self-edit the sections that are actually covered and discussed in terms of what you, and you'll know what I mean straight away, read out. In other words, we could have what's been, so you can see verbatim that what you're saying isn't edited from or taken out of context. But obviously, there won't be any necessary element of requiring you verbalizing the personal attacks or ad hominems or whatever else, just the main points. And if they happen to be presented and people happen to read them, then I'm okay with that. That'll satisfy a few people that might object. Neil.
I think we upset Neil earlier in this echo chamber. He stormed off. Yeah, fine. I think that's the trouble is it's hard to take a lot of the ad homs out because they're often within the explanation. But
well, those you can't help those. But what I'm saying is where it rolls on into more and more personal attacks and red herrings, you can self-edit that, right?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah, give me a day or so and I'll get the screenshot.
May I ask a question about this? I had to leave early, so I didn't catch that last part. But isn't this something that could be done fresh and new, and everything would still go instead of that show that was recorded? That leads to the part I got to before I left. I don't know what happened afterwards. so I can't comment on that. But up to that part, I could think Adam could put his facts together and, correspondences, and it could just be a whole new show.
That's what I'm saying. We will be. That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to. If you want to watch that, if you want to hear back scene stuff, I'm going to do more and more of it. I might hang around after the after show, and that's where you guys are. You can sort of rest in the knowledge that if it's going out to 6 or 7 members, I think the most it got up to yesterday was 10 or 11 people watching all at the same time. They're all people that you're not going to get trolls that want to give me any money to become a member. And if they are, they're not going to be keen enough to sit around and pick out something that's in amongst a discussion about how we're going to present something. And, I just think it's not going to end up being anything more than a member video. I'm not going to trim that out. But Adam's saying, give me a couple of days. I'll come up with something that makes the whole point of him being the emissary to the Ethereans a worthwhile endeavour. Because otherwise, what's the point other than I'm getting a bit of heartbreak and called names and stuff? He's acquiring the information, so shouldn't we divulge it?
Yeah. I might try and put it together as the best I can understand then. I think in some of the questions we were having yesterday, I seem to have an explanation for you guys. So I do think I've got, and maybe this is the benefit of putting it out there. I think I've got a good grip on what they're saying. So once that's out there, maybe they can then challenge that and address any misconceptions I've had, any incorrect statements. So it might be useful to take things forward, I think.
I think so. I mean, that's what I ranted on about in the live show about, how things are being refined and certain aspects that, although I didn't say it specifically, those are things to get excited about. As much as I said the opposite, it turns people off. Well, yeah, sometimes you've got to take the rough with the smooth, and this is one of the rough times if you want to look at it from that point of view, especially if you're on the other side of it. If, like in my example in the live show, you've got people who, like with my bodybuilding example with the tech guy talking about it, those are the same people. They've put their faith into people who have consistently given them good information. Then when it comes to a bit of bad information, the people on the fringes who call them out might get drowned out by the good faith that you've put in them, because you're going to go, nah, I already filtered my way through all the other nonsense around these people, and now I'm happy with my decision and my guru. I've put my faith in them. And then when they appeal back to you for the good faith that you've earned, as Witsit's doing, then that will work. As shocking as that may seem. You can't undo that mentality if that's the mentality that I believe General Joe has.
Well, in real life that I've experienced, I could bring an example that might match this. If someone is saying something about an issue or a matter that took place, say, months ago, that, say, I was involved with, and it gets back to me and is misrepresented, I'm going to want to clear that up with the person who told me by saying, where'd you hear that from? Who said it? When? Do you have any documents? So they produce it to me. I go through it, make sure everything's in context. Then I call the person who did that and say, why are you doing this to me? Why are you saying this to me? Why? Well, so-and-so told me this is how it happened. I go, no, that's not how it happened. Why didn't you contact me to get the full story? Okay, I'm sorry, what's the full story? So then I give my version. Oh my gosh, that person never said those things. I said, well, who was that person? Because that's the next person I'm going to talk to. Because this is gossip, this is false information, and you're going to hurt people by it. And I'm going to put a stop to it. So the whole point is that's how it happens in normal life. So when in this situation, statements are made, but then all communications are cut off, people get statements that aren't backed up or true. It could be just the same way. So we need to clear it up. So,
Yeah, I was trying to get out just an actual challenge. That was going to be a very public situation, but it just got completely rumpus and just forget about it. It's over now.
No, I thought your point was excellent. And plus, I don't know why you get like hung up on this really old-fashioned, outdated idea that people prejudice you for being an Irish drunk, or Irish, not you, but generally speaking, that old prejudice. It's total nonsense. Like everybody I know, and I've spoken to personally in Ireland, they all say the same thing. Everyone over there's all into the crack. They love it.
Yeah, well, Nathan, I get a lot of nonsense from opposing side. If I give them anything to attack me on, they attack me on being Irish all the time when they can't prove their claims. Not all of them, but the really bad trolls do. And I've gotten it for years and years and years. I don't want to hand them something that they can attack me on. I just don't want it. I get enough of it. Because when they have nothing left, they attack me on being Irish. It's stupid, but that's what happens. I got loads of it. From trolls who are American and British and Australian, everywhere.
Damn, bro, you're getting more prejudice than me.
Yeah, they're scared of you and chocolate. You know. But no, it's stupid. Like
Irish is the new black. Listen, this is so crazy because you were on a serious point. Then the levity came, and you said, haha, okay, but let me get on with my serious point. And that's when it should have been dropped, and it wasn't. So you were right.
I dragged it out. That was actually my fault. I'll take full responsibility for that. But I thought it would be quick. But then, Neil's one of those, isn't he? Where he's trying to make it less impactful, the gaff. But all he's doing is making it constantly worse. And talking through you.
Maybe Eli could comment. I've been to New York many times. It's just New York mentality.
No, I like Neil, but he...
I'm sorry, is what? New York what?
Yeah, sticking your foot in it. Is that a New York thing?
Engine gets a little overheated every now and then.
He's asking as a fellow New Yorker.
I didn't know that was a reiteration of what he said to me. Thank you for the clarity that I didn't get.
No, what I'm trying to do is the same thing Neil was doing with Brian. That's New York mentality. So now I'm casting all New Yorkers to be like that. But when I go to New York, there's a semblance of in your face, black and white. They don't care. And that's how they talk to you, whether it's a taxi cab driver or whatever. It's a city and they have that rough way about them. Okay, but not everyone's that way.
Yeah, it's just TV. The world is the way the world is everywhere. That might have been one of the most profound things I've ever said.
I was going to say profound.
And it's only profound because of TV. TV makes it all a lot.
So you're saying the stereotypical New York impression isn't necessarily correct, even though that's also 10th Man's impression?
Well, it's a crazy character of majority of people. Yeah, everywhere there are people on the crazier side of the spectrum. Like that's everywhere.
Yeah, but there's a lot of it in New York. I've watched a lot of Lewis Rossman back when he was in New York, and he'd be cycling around and stuff and just videotaping stuff in New York. And as he was working in his shop, right, he's right in the middle of New York. This guy just starts walking past the shop with this massive stick, just smacking cars with it as he walks down the street, smacking off wing mirrors and smacking the sides of the cars. And they rush out the shop, a couple of the employees, and have to detain this guy and then call over the closest policeman. Sods are never there when you need them, of course. Because this guy's just basically vandalising random cars. And you're like, yeah, New York, man.
Well, I'm not referencing that.
Yeah, it happens.
I didn't get it from TV. I went there and lived in New Jersey and would go to New York all the time. It's just a city that's got, in the city now, not all New Yorkers are this way. And so I did say that. But in the city, everyone's defensive, everyone's on guard because you have to be. But you could find a nice cafe where there's some relaxation going on too. So I agree with Eli's summary there wholeheartly.
Well,
It's everywhere.
That's because this, like, you're interacting with people who don't live there. You know, like it's a tourist trap. No, it's not the tourists, it's the New Yorkers. But again, like residential areas and the city is like, you know, two different things. Like the city isn't necessary. People live in the city, of course, but generally speaking, the city is just where people go to party or to do their business. That's why it's crazy like that. But it's not necessarily the areas that you would consider residential.
Well, I'll give you a similarity. Traveling through Europe, we went to, Paris several times. Snooty, stuck up, man, you just felt it. Not everyone, but in general, they were that way. We felt it. Went to Nice, went to the coast, relaxed, loving, caring. I mean, all Parisians, all from France, all, even some transplants from Paris down there, but totally different attitude.
I get what you're saying there, Eli. I've lived in a major city, and you go 3 miles, 4 miles out of whatever the major outline part of the city is, and you're into normality. It's just normal residential people doing normal residential stuff, and they might be part of the problem when they go into the city, but normally in the city is where the craziness is.
Absolutely, yes, that's said perfectly. Yeah.
Same is true of LA. I mean, I'm very defensive whenever I had to go to LA. It's crazy over there.
Yeah, shoot, Chicago, man, that place is scary.
Detroit's scary as well. There's various different places, but we have it here too. Manchester's scary. Anthony lives near Manchester, but he doesn't live in Manchester City. So, I've been in and out of Manchester for various different reasons throughout my life, and it's never particularly scary. But then you go in at a particular time, at a particular place, and you go, oh, now I get it, right? So I remember being hustled by a load of kids just parked up at a McDonald's coming out from something in Manchester, in Moss Side or wherever it was. Now, I knew it had a bit of a reputation, but I wanted a McDonald's, so I didn't care, right? But the next thing you know, you've got bloody kids chucking ketchup at your Audi, and you're like, this is a rough part of the world. Then you see one of them walking over at a big bar, and you're like, I'm going to get the fuck out of here. This place is rough. And you're like, okay, I get it. The guy who doesn't turn tail and get the hell out of there when there's a load of kids that are going to give you grief, you don't know how many adults are behind them round the corner. Again, I can only say that from having experienced it in big cities when I lived in Birmingham, which is a similar deal to Manchester in that regard. It's got its really rough parts, but it's also, and I'm sure you can testify to this too, got its rough residential areas.
Yeah, that's...
yes, there are. Yes.
We experienced that when where I live started to become, a place where people would move from the city. So that the people who moved from the city because it wasn't safe anymore, and their kids were on the school ground being picked upon by the gang members. So now they come over here, and because there are really no big gangs, they decided to simulate what they did. So they became the gang members and turned this place into a because they're the top of the chain and they were the bottom over there. So it's like they bring all that crime and everything here when the very reason their parents moved here was to get away from the crime.
Right. And societally, it's always the case that it's the 1%, the bad apples that make a bad area. So when I was in Birmingham, it was whatever was the most recent influx of immigrants. Now, obviously, there's going to be a percentage of any society that's going to be crooked, bad apples, right? But they're the ones that people pay attention to, and if it's consistently a particular subset of society that's got those criminal activities that are being highlighted to you, you're like, just the racism just immediately and naturally sets in because they're new people.
Yes. That's the problem with that. That's the. Sorry, Neil. I'm
just
go
gonna
ahead.
say,
Neil.
if somebody throws a ketchup at you, you take that ketchup and you smash it in their face.
Right. Yeah. See, so that's why I don't bother with that logic or that reasoning. You know, if I get gunned down by some gang member one day, well, I just got gunned down by some gang member. You know, I'll
Catch up.
never. Well, I mean, obviously, after I'm gone, I'm not going to be like, oh, I should have knew it. Optimistic, freaking. You know, it's like, nah. That kind of thought leads to the natural emotions that we get from seeing others. Now, the whole. I, I don't know if I can say it because discords have been taken down for specific language. I don't want the YouTube to get no, not Discord, but YouTube specifically. Um, there's this thing that happens in a lot of households, you know, and everybody's quick to talk about. I'll say R. Kelly.
Oh, DV.
Or
the abbreviation you're looking for is DV.
Domestic violence?
Oh, thanks, Neil. Just use those very specific words that YouTube will get me cancelled for. Just splurt them out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Basically, and other things, yes. And the thing is, people talk about it in a general sense, pointing to everyone else, but they never really. It's kind of like mum's the word when it comes to their house. Oh, you know, this is still a family, and we have to. That's what people extend out into the world, because the community becomes their family, and anyone outside of that becomes. That I don't know. There's always going to be a bias because there are people over there that do the same things that the people in your house do. So it makes no good to look at a people and go, oh, those people, you know, they're a bunch of this, they're a bunch of that. It's like, you don't even have an objective view of those people. So it's no point in even looking at them that way.
There's a rule in my house. What goes on in my house stays in my house as long as, you know, there's nothing crazy going on. But like regular things, I try to tell my kids all the time, keep it in the house. I don't need your aunt asking you, well, where are you going to college? Because they have a certain look at us because we homeschool. So that's like, we're bad, you know? So I got to get it across to them. What goes on in our house stays in our house. You don't share it with nobody.
That's it. You close those kids down, make them as insular as possible.
When we lived in the coast of Spain, there were these groups who would just burglarize, and they were good. And our house, our apartment, which was I think 6 floors up.
Right, the burglars were good.
Out,
good burglars.
No, the best. And so they tried. Not hamburgers. Come on.
No. The burglars were good. They were the best burglars.
Yeah, if I could finish, you might get the story.
I knew a few of them too, Tent. Go ahead.
Okay, no, they weren't of your background. So we went out, we came back, we see there's damage to the door, and we got worried because we had a dog, and the dog was on the outside porch, not making a noise. So we don't know what's going on, and we can't get in. And I went to the upstairs, looked down. It's too dangerous to throw a rope and go in because we can't get in. Nothing was working because they damaged the lock so bad. So we just stayed there in the hallway until a locksmith came. And he says, oh, wow, okay, you're fortunate because they're much better than this. But you did all your bolts. You had floor bolts, side bolts. This door was solid, had many locks on it. And we had locked it all. He says, 5 more minutes, they would have gotten in. I said, who would have gotten in? He says, the Romanians. They're terrorizing the city. You know how many? I got calls every day because they're so good. So we got in and everything. The next day I'm sharing the story. And of course, because he said it, I'm saying the Romanian gangs burglarized the city, and the locksmith is his business is up because he's out there showing people what to do to avoid it, blah, blah, blah. Now, does that make me think every Romanian is a burglar? Of course not. Not even the closest. So it depends where you are as a person if you're going to categorize a group of people based on the burglars of that group. It's nonsense to do so. So
right.
Anyway.
Exactly. I mean, everybody knows the Romanians also are very adept at stealing cars.
Okay, well, that too. But there are Armenian gangs in LA that steal cars. So, and I'm Armenian. So what's that? Do I steal cars?
I meant back in the day. I knew quite a few excellent burglars.
I bet if you wanted to, Temp, you've still got those skills.
And you know
I love you, Adam.
the channels that relay the information are coming from the people that are either like I'm talking about the media, the news, the same people that relay the information about the crimes, you know, are they're owned by the same individuals that perpetuate the crimes that they say, oh no, I know this looks like the same thing, but it's not the same thing. It's totally legit, bro. It's totally legit. You know, like there's, you know, do you know that there's more theft from companies than there are from employees? So they have like all businesses like the retail businesses and stuff. They have a certain amount of loss that they calculate for because of, you know, theft and all of that. But do you know more theft happens just on the fact that people are missing pennies here, pennies there on their paychecks? Oh, that's totally a clerical error, bro. No problem. The point I'm trying to make is, and I was like, you know, not the greatest example, but it's like the people that propagate the information that has us looking at each other leery are the same people that are doing crimes that we don't look at leery. So it's like now the U.S. is our home. We're not going to talk shit about it in general, but we will talk smack about the people down the street.
Let me tell you a story, Eli, that will justify what you're saying in the previous story. So I'm in a conference in Miami, I think it was, and I decide to walk back to the hotel. So I'm walking rather than driving, but I don't know the city. It's getting dark. And I stumble into a black neighborhood, and I see these people begging the security guard of a food outlet to be able to go in and get food if it was possible. Security guards waving, say you can't come in. So I'm kind of watching it. I see a mother, father, and I think it was one child. It could have been two. I can't remember. And I said, it's just me. I go, what seems to be the problem? So says, well, the owner is refusing service to these people. And I said, is there a reason why? And he said, he doesn't think they can pay. And I go, I'll pay. Can one of them come in with me and I'll pay and we can get them fed? He says, let me go ask. So I'm standing out there and they're thanking me and whatever. And he said, yeah, that'll work. So the wife came in with me. I said, order whatever you want. Because they looked hungry. So she ordered, we walk out and they go on their way. The security guard looks at me and he says, where are you headed to? I said, such and such a hotel. He says, the one over there? And I go, yeah. He says, let me walk you there. I said, you're going to walk me there? He says, yeah, I want to walk you there. So, okay. So we're walking. Now we're on a, you know, like a boulevard. So there's lights and stores. And there's this alleyway to the right that cuts through a bunch of tall, you know, buildings, apartments. And it's really, I mean, dark. There's no lights. He says, we're going to take this shortcut. I'm looking at the street that's well lit. I'm looking at the alleyway that's dark. And I just met this guy. I had a feeling over me like I've never had before. It's like, okay, do I go in that dark alleyway with this guy I just met? I go, well, Lord, after he saw what he saw there, I doubt he's going to do anything to me because he saw some generosity. So I said, okay. But I had the EBGB, so I will not lie. We go through it. We come out the other side, where's the other end of the street, and it's well lit. He says, okay, there's your hotel. Now you're safe. He saw people scoping me out is my best bet. Now,
Yep.
and he saw what they were going to do to me. And God in his providence worked it all out to where a black man protected me from possibly other black men. Now,
That's
are
amazing.
are all black men going to mug me? Of course not. This is why it's stupid to generalize everybody.
Although, in saying that, you can generalize everybody, because people are people and they all behave in a very similar way in many different respects.
I would say that in the city at night, you can generalize more danger from all sorts of people. But the same sort of people will protect you too.
That's something because I had a Muslim guy when I was away in Rikers Island protect me from literally almost getting killed. Now, back in the day, there was a big thing with the phones. Now, I was in this housing unit for almost a year. So I was like known there. So I made a mistake and I decided to get what was so-called slot time on the phone from 8 o'clock at night till 10 o'clock. But I got like a half hour from 8 to 8:30. And one day this Muslim guy, now he knew I was Christian. And he told me, he said, Neil, tonight after, because you locked in at 4 o'clock, came back out at 5 o'clock because they did their state count of all the inmates. So he said, when you come out, just leave the phone alone tonight. I was like, why? I was very short. I was going home in about 3 or 4 weeks. He said, just leave it there. I said, why? Somebody making a move on me? He said, yeah, all those young bloods that just came in. He said, they're going to move on you tonight. I said, well, I can't just like let it stay there. I got to say something. Otherwise, there's going to be a problem. So after the lockout, what I said was, I'm leaving in 3 or 4 weeks. Whoever wants that time can have it. But if he didn't tell me that, I would have got sliced up over a phone. There's a Muslim guy saving a Christian. Yes, said he was black.
I really don't know what you got against Muslims, Neil. I mean,
I don't have anything. I'm just saying he knew I was Christian. He didn't have to.
What does that matter? I mean, they follow their system. Christians
that wasn't
follow
the point,
theirs.
Arwen.
Yeah, you missed
it
the
wasn't
point.
about the religion. My goodness, I'm Armenian. The Muslim Turks massacred my people. I know.
But that's the Turks. That's a people. It's a people.
Let me finish.
Not the religion.
Let me finish.
the thing is,
What I was trying to say was the guy didn't have to look out for me.
Let me
he
finish.
did.
Please.
And I think it was God's providence.
Let me finish, please. I don't hold Turks that I've met in my life guilty for that. It was them and there at that time. I have Muslim friends. Arwen, can you please wait? I have Muslim friends. They're not all going to kill me. My goodness.
You know what? People are
Do you
people.
know anybody any of them that would actually kill you? I mean, they bluff too. I mean, they're just trying to mirror the Western satanic front of bluffing and double speaking, right? They have to face this too. You gotta get real with it.
Yeah, let me respond.
There was no bluff in that. They were going to move on me.
Can I respond to you, Neil? So, as I'm hearing the Neil story, and you're saying, yeah, but they're not, you're undermining the fact that this is actually the teachable moment that would show him the point that you're trying to make. So it was just bad timing, and it just didn't work out, Arwood. The point you're trying to make is the thing he would have learned from the story he just told.
You know what? No matter where you go in the world, people are the same. I don't care what they look like, don't care what they dress like or what they follow. People are the exact same. I've been around the world a fair bit, and people who want to do you harm, or want to rob you or want to give you a problem, you always know them. They're the exact same people. Don't care what their eye color is, what they're dressed like, what their background is genetically, doesn't matter. You can get that same intent, not intense now, but intent, I-N-T-E-N-T, intent feeling from them. Right? It doesn't matter. Like, I was in many poor places and poor, let's just say, sort of neighborhoods or whatever around the world in different places. And it's no hassle with most people. But there's certain people in every one of these places, and I know because I grew up in that kind of place, and their intent is to be predators. And that's that. It doesn't matter who they are.
Well,
Their
in my
intent is to be
situation,
predators.
right?
Well
In my
said.
situation, they were predators. But what I found weird was that here's this guy. Now we had talks from across the cells. You know, he knew where I stood in Christianity. I know where he stood. But other than that, it wasn't. So for him to come and warn me like that, I mean, I just looked at it like God's providence, because I was oblivious that I was in prison because I got so comfortable there. I found it very, I was just piggybacking off of Tense, how God provided protection for him. And he did it in the same way with me. That's all I was trying to say.
If that man hadn't helped you out, then you would have unknowingly gotten attacked.
I would have been sitting on that phone, and next thing I know, I would have got sliced up and who knows in the infirmary. But I've seen it happen to other people. I seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah, but same thing. God saved me in the same way, probably more times than I can even remember. Like, it's only because of y'all's story I remember how mine went. You know, it was a very scary time, and it was by kids in the neighborhood that I actually knew. An older kid whose mom was cool with my mom and all of that. Like, I wasn't expecting any of these guys to like really want to do me harm seriously. I'm like, we live in the same neighborhood. Like, what's up with you guys? Okay, you guys are rough. You guys, fight and all that, play basketball together and everything. But like, to really wish me harm because, and not because I was stronger, because I was a tall, goofy, not tough kid. That's what I was. And they wanted to. It's like when a cat sees fear and they want to play with the mouse, and it's like, I don't understand people who I never liked that feeling. That's why I've always stepped up for against bullies. But one night I was hanging out with these girls from the way, like I usually do. And actually, no, I wasn't hanging out with them. I normally hang out with them with one kid from my building. And this particular night, no one was around, so I was looking in their window. I had looked into the window of the older boy's girlfriend. And so they came from around the corner and they asked, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You trying to talk to my girl? You trying to do this and that and the third?" Must have been like 15 of them. And I was scared dookie-less because I've seen what they've done to strangers that came in the area. I just knew like it was over. I just knew there was no way out and this was going to be a bad day.
Run.
But there was one guy from my building. He knew how to fight. He was tough, and he just so happened to live underneath me. And because of that, we kind of considered each other family. And he literally prevented them from doing whatever they were going to do to me. It was dark. It was back. It was a place that I could have probably not made it out alive. And he just happened to be there, and they happened to respect him enough to leave me alone and never bother me again.
Nice. How did this topic come up anyway?
I don't know.
It was because of Brian. Brian was moaning about the general stereotypes that apply to the Irish being used against him whenever they get battered by him. That was the reason it came up.
Yeah, well, what I get is what I get is online, and it's gone on with years. It's not that not that I'm,
Sensitive?
no, yeah, I'm not sensitive to it. What it is, I don't want to give them anything that they can use against me because that's what they do. They'll make sock accounts. If they can't defeat me with the accounts they have, they make sock accounts and start attacking me in that way. You know what I mean? With the sock accounts. And they'll try and do while I'm also trying to battle against their actual account. And a lot of time the questions that I get off the ballers, like we all get, they make them as confusing as possible, and they're throwing it in as many equations as possible because it's all to make it as difficult as possible to reply back to them. There's no straight answers. They won't define anything. They won't, So sometimes it could go on. You could a couple of days answering back someone. They're commenting you, you're commenting back, and that you could be doing that with several people.
They leave trails of puzzles.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of puzzles is all they're trying to do. They're trying to confuse anyone that might read it, and I know what they're doing. But I don't mind someone having a straight out, comment debate with me. Grand, that's fine. I'll try and keep up with that. But what happens is that I can get that when someone starts turning sour or whatever, sock accounts turn up and they're attacking me on this being Irish, and they don't care about me being Irish. They don't even care about me. It doesn't matter. They're just looking for any reason to attack me. You know what I mean? There's hardly that much. Well, I did deal with it in real life, but there's not that many people out there who are anti-Irish. There's not enough reason to be. You know what I mean? Not in 2022, but you still find them. That's they need to attack me on something, and they attack me on that, and that's what it is.
Yeah, we've all experienced it.
Yeah, Italians they get no slack. Call us Dago Guinea Wops. Don't bother me none.
Yeah, but see, that's what they do.
A wasp, Brian. Luckily, I've encountered no prejudice in my life.
Wait a second. Wasp, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant?
So that's the claim, apparently.
Yeah, but see, look, it's the losing point when someone has to go to that. They're lost when they get to that point. They've lost when they got to that point. There's no way around it.
I would like to present another perspective. Look, if they feel comfortable enough to go to that level, that means that virtually in their position, they feel comfortable enough and safe enough to be able to do that, right? And still see it as a joke. So maybe that's a good sign that the world hasn't actually consequentially gone to shit that quickly, even though the media will suggest that that is the case, that still they're in a actual position where they're able to just make a joke and push it that far and still feel comfortable enough and able to be doing that.
I just think they do. When they get to the point of attacking you in some way like that, I get that part of it because I'm Irish, so I get that. Other people will get it, like Neil will get it because he's Italian. They don't attack Eli like that because they know if they start that kind of thing at all, there's going to be too much of a backlash. But if they could attack Eli in that way, they would. But they can't. They know there's too much of an online backlash. If they start
right.
that,
So you're saying
that.
So you're saying that he's got a better union as a black man, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, nobody takes anti-Irish serious anyway. That's the thing about
it. You're not ginger. I mean, how good's the ginger people's union? Not very good, let's be honest.
No, terrible.
Hey, Jesus is ginger.
It's growing, though. It's growing. Yeah, Jesus is ginger. That's right.
Yes, the blacks have got a very good union.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just like if they can get away with saying it, they say it. But if they think it's going to get them into trouble with YouTube or something, they won't. but they know there's no YouTube has no policy against anti-Irish. They have a policy against hate crime or whatever, but anti-Irish is not considered hate crime. The same way as flat earthers. You can say what you want to a flat earther.
Well,
it's not considered.
It's specific, isn't it? You've got to be a minority group. So if you look at what a minority group is, you've got to be specified as a minority group, right? Which kind of is self-defeating in its description. Like, if you're in the minority, why would you be categorized at all? You're in the minority, right? You might not be categorized, right? But they do. They categorize you. So there's certain sets of fringe groups, like lesbians and blacks and all the rest of it.
Well, yeah, but see, the thing about it is that you look at somewhere like the US, right? And they use the term minorities, right? I mean, if you look at the amount of black people in America, let's say African Americans, right? Now, I'll include people like Chocolate, who's Haitian American, even though he's not African American, his family are from Haiti. But let's say all the black people in America. And you look at all the people who are from Mexico in America. Now, they'll call both those groups of people the minorities. They're not minorities. The amount of people in America who are black and the amount of people in America who are of Mexican descent, it's ridiculous amounts of people. And that's why they're always trying to, when voting time comes up, they're always trying to make the African American community happy and the Mexican American community happy, because they know there's so many people there from Mexico, originated from Mexico, or they went there, they came there as immigrants in recent years, or their family came there a long time ago. The point is, there's a lot of people in America from Mexico. There's a lot of people in America who are black or of African descent. You know, so if these groups of people are minorities, then how come they're so important when it comes to voting time? Because there's so many of them.
It's to legitimize the process. So you know how, like, we talk about begging the question and not going past that. Like, oftentimes when people talk about politics, they're often like many steps beyond asking the question that's most important. So now we're talking about whether or not, you know, blacks, Mexicans, whoever, the minority, and it's like the real, like, the thing about it is, like, we actually, never mind. I was gonna say it, but actually this conversation specifically is the kind of conversation got the other YouTube, like, yeah, I forget it.
You ever listen to the Hodge twins?
Who?
Yeah, I like them. When I was into politics, I liked them.
Yeah, me too. When I was doing the whole politic thing, I got out of that though quick. That'll suck you right in politics. Oh my goodness.
That's all it is, a pre-designated political group. When they say minority, it's just it's an arbitrary term. It doesn't mean small group, does it? It's like terrestrial refraction. It doesn't mean it's terrestrial. I mean, it creates a specific illusion, probably quite detrimental, because if you're a minority, that implies you're small, and therefore infers insignificance, and therefore implies that there's hand-holding and assurances need to be given by the person in control, the person that's not in the minority.
Right. So like politics, we all agree that countries all move together. They all know what's going on. They're under one banner. We've seen it with the lockdown, how they all agreed and just everybody got locked down, right? They're all moving in one and we're just pawns.
During the lockdown, I was talking of New York. One of the interesting things that's happened during the lockdown was some rich guy who owns an absolute shed ton of really expensive cars, took his Carrera GT out in Manhattan when the streets were empty and smashed it into a load of parked cars and just carried on driving it. So with like a wheel missing and all the axles hanging out and it's sparks flying everywhere and it's scraping along the ground. And the police are behind him and he's still moving off. He's still pulling away, right? Eventually they box him in this completely smashed up, written off Carrera GT. Lovely, lovely car that he couldn't handle. And he looked out of his head. He looked like he was on drugs when they showed the footage. Somebody got a camera phone in his face while the police are talking to him. You can imagine that, you know, there's so few people that the one person there with the camera phone gets a really clear view of this guy's face in his smashed up Porsche. New York's crazy.
To have money.
I bet he did live in Manhattan. He's probably got some £50 million garage, like in some basement right in the middle.
Well, that reminded me of the right after 9/11, the lockdowns. It was like a ghost town during the day.
Yeah. Did you go out then? I take it you must have been there, like into the ghost town to see it like that.
Yeah, I remember I was on. Was it this show or 24/7? I was showing a hospital. I was outside. I was videoing a hospital, and nobody was there. And they were claiming that there's freaking tons of people and this, that, and the other thing. Nobody there.
Yeah, we live in a weird world, eh? That's when people say, why does it matter? It's like, well, that's because this is what it really implies to you, isn't it? You start broadening your visual acuity because you've got to take in more and assess it in a different way once you appreciate the grand scale of being lied to about the nature of your reality. Everything else changes. Now, when you ask, why does it matter? When they ask, why does it matter? What difference does it make? It's only because they haven't actually assessed the implications. It's like, okay, so there's a massive deception about the very nature of everything you're stood on. The whole world. You've been lied to about the whole world. That doesn't mean anything to you? You don't think that that could have other implications? Like the ones Cats went through with Haunted House? No? Okay. Give it a minute.
Well, look at when when we used to say that NASA and the Chinese and all of them were working together, and they denied it. When we used to debate with ballers, but then that COVID thing happened, and you see now countries work together. And that lie.
Yeah, they still don't agree. They'll even,
they work together though.
They'll even tell you what's going on and everything, and give you a proper account of what happened. And they'll still say, yeah, but you know, how do we know that that's okay? All right.
Listen, when they said shut it down, every single country shut it down. That sounds to me and looks to me like these elites are all working together, whether they're French, English, German, Chinese, Japanese, American. It's one world order.
Order out of chaos, right?
Seems that way.
There's a
I've been
friend of mine. Sorry, come on, Eli, go after one.
Oh, I was gonna switch it up and go back to the sex. So go ahead first, Brian.
Okay. There's a lad I know, and he was never somebody to mistrust things or anything like that. But obviously, with the whole lockdown thing and all that happened, he started mistrusting it, and he went researching things, and he refused to get any inoculations and all that kind of thing. And I talked to him where he said he works in the shop I go to, and I talked to him, and he's often like high strung about it because he's angry, because he literally there's a lot of people that he grew up with and knows, and people in his family that he basically doesn't want ever to have anything to do with again, because of the treatment he got when he kind of basically was saying to them, you need to research things better, you need to do this, you need to do that, and they were like, kind of just go along with it and stop making trouble, kind of attitude he gave him. And I just pointed out to him, I said, I was saying, yeah, but now they're in a situation where they have to admit that he had a point. And I said to him, I said, yeah, and I said, but the problem with that, what they'll do is probably two things. Number one, when they meet you, they'll either be insulting to you because they don't want to have to deal with it, or when they meet you, they'll pretend nothing happened. So you'll get nothing out of it. Because that's the norm with people, isn't it? That's what people do. they don't want to admit they're wrong. They don't want to admit that you were right and they should have listened to you when you told them X, Y, or Z. They just want to pretend it didn't happen, or when they meet you, have an issue with you because they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, shame.
You know,
shame.
That's pride.
That's basically what it is. So when you say it's easier to deceive somebody than it is to convince somebody that they've been deceived, when they're shown and proven to have been deceived, then they feel great shame. That's why it's so difficult to convince them they've been duped. They don't want that feeling, and they'd rather fight against the possibility of having that feeling of shame when they know that they have been shown to be deceived.
What about pride too? You don't think there's pride in that too?
Same thing, same subset of emotional feelings. Pride, shame.
I mean, you got to be prideful to feel like you haven't been fooled, right? How can you fool me? I'm so smart.
Bit of embarrassment, a little bit of guilt, but mostly shame. Yeah, but they won't thank you. You're right, Brian. Your point is that it's not like they'll go, wow, you know what? You were right all along. They'd rather never mention it again because it's not you were right. It's I was wrong. People don't like that.
No, and I said that to him. I said I don't expect any. He doesn't even know that I'm a flat earther. He doesn't even know that. He just knows that I'm not someone who's just going to believe whatever is told to me, basically. And I just told him, don't expect anyone to say, okay, you were right or anything like that. It's not going to happen. And he's even thinking about leaving where he grew up, just leaving the whole place. He's actually that angry about it because he can't even now. He just does people, just lots of people in his life that he grew up with, knew his whole life, who showed themselves up in a way to him that he just doesn't like. You know, so I said, you know, don't expect that out of it because you're not going to get it. As you said, Nathan, shame. They don't want to accept it. It's hard to accept, but I'd rather accept it than not accept it.
Indeed. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both G+ and Gilded Panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you tuning in live if you're a member, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and joining as a member if you're watching this after the fact on a premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!